Welcome in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is Tuesday, June 24th, right here on Jox 94.5. Fun show planned for you today. As we inch towards SEC Media Days, there are a couple of things on my mind as it pertains to the sport that we love so much called college football. Sometimes you have to come up with things to discuss. Other times, things are just presented to you. And that's why we will have Pete Nikkos on the show at 8 a.m. this morning. Pete recently had a conversation with one Thomas Castellanos, who you have probably seen play college. Well, you know what? A lot of you probably hadn't seen him play college football because it was at Boston College.
Well, he might have. He gave Florida State all he wanted pretty much single-handedly 2 years ago.
Like I said, he played at Boston College. Most of you probably hadn't watched him play. Talented player, good player. Did quit on his team last year.
He ran for 93 yards on third down alone.
Quit on his team
against
last year.
Florida State.
That was a Thursday night game?
No, it was a Saturday morning game.
Saturday morning
The
game.
only reason why I know
didn't he like go off on a Thursday night game? It was a competitive game and
I don't remember that one. The Florida State game was at noon on week 3. I remember it vividly because we were in West Virginia doing Pitt, West Virginia, and Sean was like, I told you we should have been doing the Boston College Florida State game. I was like, it was a 22-point spread. Like, what do you mean? And it's because it went all the way down to the wire, and Florida State won, but it was close, like real close. So that's the game you're thinking of.
Sean
for
knows
sure.
ball. Okay, that's what he means.
He ran for 93 yards on third down.
He knew that was going to happen. He knew that was going to take place. So that's where we were. Now, Thomas Castellanos apparently sat down with Pete Nikkos of the On3 Sports Network and discussed his season opener, which I do feel like is flying way under the radar, by the way. And I know Florida State was bad last year. Different team, different players. Gus Malzahn's the offensive coordinator now. Castellanos is the quarterback. And he says, quote, they don't have Nick Saban to save them. I just don't see them stopping me.
If you're mad about it, what are your thoughts? Nick Saban is the only way to slow someone down.
Listen, I give Nick Saban all the credit in the world. I think he's the greatest college football coach, arguably maybe top 3-5 coach in general of our lifetimes. I mean, you throw a Gino Auriemma, a Belichick, a Pat Summitt in there. I mean, he's on that Mount Rushmore. When's the last time in game Nick Saban saved a team? When's the last time Nick Saban ran over to the huddle and said, guys, why are we not blitzing the boundary corner? And they got 3 sacks on the boundary corner the rest of the game.
I think he did it when he was at Kent State when he was playing, if I'm not mistaken.
That would have probably been the one.
No, I mean, he
76.
made some major tactical moves to help win games.
Yeah, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Putting in Tua Tagovailoa, calling a surprise onside kick in the national championship in 2015 would be like 2 at the top in my mind. But that has nothing to do with stopping the opposing quarterback. If the opposing quarterback's ripping, he's just ripping. It is what it is. Like, I mean, it's easy to call situationally adjusting and calling a special play here or there, but I don't know. I think stopping the opposing quarterback when he's a dual threat guy, there's very little opposing coach can do if the guy's playing really, really well.
What is the – I mean, is this just confidence that a guy is – I don't know if he was there in the spring. Was he there in the spring? Did he go through spring practice?
Yes.
So he's just feeling the offense so much that he just shredded that Florida State defense to the extent that he feels like he can puff his chest out and say anything about anybody now?
I don't know the answer to that.
Or is he just that good?
He's just that good. He has to be. Yeah, it's definitely the latter. I don't know. All I know is that it's a strange thing to do to give material to the opposing team week 1 when you, 1, don't even know if you're good. 2, don't really know if they're good. And 3, you give them 6 weeks to just chew on it for a little bit before they decide whether or not they want to kill you.
Well, I mean, everybody knows where I am on bulletin board material. I don't think it's real. I do think that here's what I think about situations like this and why it's so dumb. I don't really think that affects Alabama. I don't think that all of a sudden Deontay Lawson's doing 3 more workouts a day. I don't think that all of a sudden Ty Simpson's like, I better get my ass in the gym today. I wasn't planning on coming here. I was not going to be here today, but bench press, here I come.
Now
I don't think that's a real thing. What I do think is it puts a lot more pressure on you. Because if you go out there on the first 2 third downs and you miss a wide open out route and it hits the trainer back behind the water table, and then on the second one it's about 3 yards short, guess who's feeling that? Not Keon Sabb. Not Ryan Williams. That's on you. And it mounts that pressure and it builds a little bit more steam around you because you're the one that was running your mouth. So, and maybe, just maybe, he's one of those guys that needs to put that extra pressure on himself. Maybe so I took that personal guy.
Oh.
Dare I say I'm not even going to say he's like that guy.
Diego Pavia?
No, not many.
I think it's great
Pavia
to
is one of those guys.
I think it's great.
Pavia wants it all on him. No, I'm not even joking. Pavia wants it all on him. And if he fails, he'll say, yep, I screwed it up. I'll come back and get you next week. Like, he doesn't care. Like, Pavia is the dude that if you square off in a fight, will sit there and say, first shot, dude, go ahead. Like, first shot. And he'll let you hit him in the chin. And if you knock him out, he's like, got me. But he doesn't think you're going to knock him out. He just doesn't think it's going to happen.
All fair. But can we acknowledge the possibility that guys that are insecure run their mouth?
See, this is an interesting topic.
I think it's usually the opposite. Like, if you're running your mouth, it's because you clearly are a little bit concerned about something, and it's.
See, I wasn't made aware of, and I'm being 100% honest with you here. I wasn't
You're
made.
not being 100% honest?
I am.
Oh, okay.
I'm being 100% honest.
I'm not being 100% honest with you here, but here's what I'm thinking.
I had a rough night of sleep last night. I'm just like slurring my words right now. I wasn't really made aware until insecurities and how they operated and things around them until I got married. And honestly, I used to point to my wife and say, you use that phrase too often. You point that out on too much of a regular basis. But then as more time went on, she's right. And she'll say, well, the only reason someone's still doing that is that they're insecure about how they feel or what they do or what they're thinking. And I was like, what? And then now it makes sense. So I think you could be spot on. It's not a direction that I normally look first, but it's one that my eyes have been opened up to since I got married. And I do think that that's probably pretty real. Now, you and I also talked about there's something different that I wanted to get to over the course of the show today, and it's coaching language and like what coaches really mean. And it's interesting that you brought that up because one of the things that I was going to say was when coaches complain about very specific things within their team, very detailed individual things within their team, I think that means that they love their team. So like the further a coach has to go to complain about something like, you know, if the left side of our offensive line could just pass protect on third and longs, and we got one guy that can't get that done, and if we don't find that guy, we're not gonna be able to compete for anything this year. Like, okay, that's your only problem. Then I usually think that guy really likes his team. So what is this saying? Is this saying that he doesn't like the guys around him? He doesn't like what the play calling is going to look like? Is he trying to go out on a limb and say, I'm the most talented player we have, you better use me? Where are his insecurities pointing is what I'd be interested in, because I don't know the answer to that.
He got replaced midseason last year for faulty play and really has had moments in his career that have been spectacular. I mean, I can think of watching a couple Boston College games with him at the helm, both on television and on tape, and it was like, this guy's a handful. And then you'd watch him again, and then you're like, all right, I kind of understand why this guy's still such a work in progress. But the upside was always there. You could acknowledge that. I think things ended unceremoniously at his last job. And I also think that with you started the conversation by saying he quit on his team. I think that probably is something that still bothers him. I think that probably is something that bothers him because every time someone mentions his name, they probably reference the fact that he left Boston College midseason because he lost to Grayson James, who might not even win the starting job this year because he's competing against Dylan Lonergan, former Alabama quarterback. So I think that's where it comes from. Like, he wants everyone to think how great he is because he can capitalize potentially on some NIL deals this summer. When in reality, when the season starts and he's not that great, maybe he probably doesn't make those deals anymore. What happened with DJ Uiagalelei last year? He probably made some money in the summertime.
Yep.
Probably did pretty good in the summertime. Why? Because people thought he was going to be good. You know what dried up? Second ball was snapped in Dublin, Ireland last year against Georgia Tech. NIL opportunities for DJ Uiagalelei at Florida State. So that's my assumption. I think it's mostly true too. If you want me to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we live in an era now where if you tell everybody how great you are, people for whatever reason want to believe you. I've never understood why this, like, to me, Barry Sanders was my favorite NFL player in the 90s outside of Michael Irvin, who is quite literally the opposite of Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders, but it's beside the point. Michael Irvin played for my team. I'm talking outside of the Cowboys in the 90s. Barry Sanders is my favorite. Score a touchdown, toss the ball to the official. Don't say anything. Compliment your offensive line. Great teammate, all this other stuff. Now is the opposite. We celebrate outspoken idiocy when it comes to a lot of players and how great they are. I mean, there's a bunch of guys in the league, and I think the most obvious position that they always debate is corner. I'm the best corner of the league. I'm the best corner of the league. Well, there's only one, so how come there's 7 of y'all that are claiming it? Or running back or quarterback? Like, I don't know, man. I feel like we're in an era right now where if you tell everybody how good you are, they might just believe you.
Also, as you just pointed out, faulty play lost his job. You forget, if there's one thing that we learned doing radio in this town, is that Bill O'Brien doesn't know offense. So let's not forget that.
Yeah,
And Bill O'Brien. And
definitely
coach.
doesn't know quarterbacks.
He definitely can't coach.
So we've heard.
Thomas Castellanos off the hook.
And he also has Gus Malzahn, too. So Gus Malzahn is the offensive coordinator who beat Nick Saban, who was the coach at Alabama. It's just a transitive property of success. So I understand where Thomas Castellanos
Maybe he's looking at it as Nick Saban didn't save him then. Nick Saban can't save him now.
Come on now. Exactly.
Maybe
I'm completely I'm like a recruit right now. I'm flipping.
This is what could happen here. Maybe Bill O'Brien.
2-star radio host flips from Alabama to Thomas Castellanos today on First Take.
I've solved the puzzle. All right, here's what's going on right now. Thomas Castellanos was playing for Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien has an axe to grind against Nick Saban because he didn't defend him enough publicly.
Because Bill O'Brien's not a grown-up and definitely needs that.
Yes, definitely. Bill O'Brien then sends Thomas Castellanos as a Manchurian candidate to the transfer portal midseason last year, saying, hey, this is going to be best for you. You're going to end up playing at a big school, and I'm hoping it's Florida State. I'm going to call Mike Norvell right now. I'm going to make a ringing endorsement on your behalf. You're going to end up there. They're also going to go get Gus Malzahn because I think that I can make that happen too. And then you're going to go out and publicly bash Alabama and in a roundabout way give credit to Nick Saban. So this is, I think, just a grand scheme here by Bill O'Brien.
He's their Trojan horse.
Yeah, he's the Trojan horse.
Means USC's winning the national championship this year.
I was literally thinking that. I was thinking that or Georgia Southern because Clay Helton's at Georgia Southern.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Now we're
Love
cooking.
to see it.
Georgia Southern's going to be in the playoff. USC's winning the Big Ten. Bill O'Brien has a love-hate relationship with Nick Saban. That's why he left because he hated him. Of course, that's not accurate. He went to go coach in the NFL. And then he decided to send Thomas Castellanos to praise him because he felt bad for him leaving. That's what happened. That's what's going on.
Makes perfect sense.
It's all figured out.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
It all works itself out. But it does seem a little bit odd that, I don't know, what's the line on that game? What have we seen?
I think it's 13 right now, Alabama.
Okay. It's a lot of points.
It is.
Week 1. Just saying.
Nick Saban might not be there. A lot of aspects of that team, if you have studied them, if you have watched them, if you know what's returning, you need to be prepared for. Should be pretty good. So either way, it's going to be a tough battle. No matter how good, bad you are, this is going to be a tough team to face.
Bad.
So
The other thing,
there are good players on that team. It's there's video evidence of it. We can watch it and see it,
especially on defense. And they did, just for the record, they did play some pretty dynamic quarterbacks last year. First year in the system, they had some growing pains. Diego Pavia did give them fits for sure. He played the game of his life and was lights out in the performance. But I do think they improved when they got to Lenore Sellers. I do think they improved even further than that as they got a little further down the rabbit hole of competition that they played down the stretch. So do I think Thomas Castellanos could give Bama a bunch of fits? Absolutely. But then again,
how many 300-yard passing games do you think they gave up last year?
0.
No.
1. 3.
2.
Well, one was Carson Beck.
439.
Yeah.
That was all second half.
Yeah.
That was all second half.
It's because Kirby's a great coach. More points in the second half.
What was it? 13 games. It'll take you 9 more guesses to get the correct answer.
Wait, what?
Go for it.
Are you asking Thomas Castellanos?
No.
Who was the other one that threw for 300?
The other one that Alabama gave up. Other team Alabama gave up 300 yards passing against. It was not Lenore Sellers.
Peyton Thorne.
It was Auburn. 301.
Yeah, because they
that was the last play.
He got 90 yards on the last drive, just throwing hitches.
Did he get it?
Keandre Lambert-Smith.
That's a fact.
Got him.
That's a fact.
9 other guesses though. You see, yeah.
Well, I should have known you wouldn't have gone Mercer because how much you disrespect that offense.
It's an interesting offense, triple option. I know you don't respect the passing game.
You also hate Nikkos, so you were never going to guess him.
You're never going to guess that one.
He was at the game. I called that game. Believe me, he didn't throw for 300.
I mean, Pavia went for 252. Now efficiency is where you would go with that.
Yeah, but to say I don't think he had a ball that didn't hit the receiver's hands in that game.
Which, by the way, would be the 3rd most passing yards allowed against Alabama last year, or 3rd most passing yards gained. So LSU went for 239.
Ugh.
That's his guy.
Oh, G Nuss.
I'm just saying, like
because Bama was playing ball control.
South Florida, 103. Missouri. Oh. I gotta double check this, see if it's real. 72. Starter was out.
It sure was. It was.
Yeah, that was a tough game.
Yeah, they went to QB3.
That was a tough watch.
Oklahoma 68.
Well, they were around. They were different. It was ground and pound.
Michigan 75. I guess those aren't
the
weather brag-worthy when they go the way they did. Trey in Nashville wants to chime in on Alabama, Florida State. Welcome in, Trey.
Hey guys, how y'all doing this morning?
Great, thank you.
Second, I saw that Thomas Castellanos said that. Couldn't help but think how, buddy, we're not really too worried about you because Bill O'Brien single-handedly stopped you last year, and last time I checked, Bill O'Brien was ran straight out of Tuscaloosa because he's an incompetent coach. So we're not too worried about you.
So incompetent that Bill O'Brien got a job immediately with Bill Belichick. Also,
I mean, Nick Saban ran his ass straight out of town.
That's inaccurate.
Okay. Well, I'm
in favor of Tommy Rees. That's who he wanted to go hire. Dick Saban was so desperate to get rid of Bill O'Brien that he decided to go hire Tommy Rees.
Actually, hey, last time I checked, he wanted to hire Grubbs, and Grubbs turned him down.
He did. That is accurate. He was the first pick.
So, I'd take Grubbs over Bill O'Brien.
I'm fine with that.
Bill O'Brien's the one that tried to say Jalen Milroe couldn't be a quarterback, and now Jalen Milroe is a quarterback in the NFL. So
Jalen Milroe also had some challenges and some real nice moments as a quarterback. He also had some real bad moments as a quarterback. You know what coaches and offensive coordinators in particular don't like? Inconsistency. So it's not that he said he couldn't play. He just said that there were a lot of things that were challenging about making Jalen Milroe into an all-time great quarterback because there were going to be some downside moments too. Like, this is not like the Bill O'Brien apology tour here. Bill O'Brien is a heck of a coach. And I think that anybody that disagrees with that doesn't know ball. So that's where I'm at.
All right, thanks for the call, Trey. Appreciate it.
He's been hired by Bill Belichick twice. He's been hired by Nick Saban. Nick Saban sings his praises every opportunity he gets. And Bill O'Brien has twice been a head coach and has twice achieved pretty dang good things in unique circumstances. One, in which when he took over Penn State after the Sandusky situation, which was about as bad a situation as you could take over, he took him to a bowl game twice. And 2, Jeff Hafley leaves in the middle of the year last year as a head coach. He has to take over. They all of a sudden end up being pretty good. Relatively speaking.
You look at Castellanos, who lost his job, like you said, because of performance. In 7.5 games, almost 62%, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, threw for over 1,300 yards. Not to mention, also rushed for 194. So it's not like Castellanos was just an interception machine. I mean, he was playing pretty good football. And nobody said a word about BC winning any games last year. And like you said, all of a sudden they were competitive and had to flip quarterbacks in the middle of the season and kept doing it. I hate to say it, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like it. That's why we had fun with it in the beginning of the show. You're not going to get the Bill O'Brien hate here. You're just not. We don't think he's a terrible coach. And I understand that he's not the only one that has left Alabama that folks are convinced is a terrible coach. But
he also got hired by Ohio State. He also, for being a bad coach, that guy gets a lot of good jobs. For being a terrible executive, man, I've worked at Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and now I'm working for this really cool startup called NVIDIA. What are we doing? Like, if you're a bad coach, you don't get jobs. He's won more than 50% of his games in the NFL as a head coach. That's a pretty good spot to be in. He's been to the playoffs and won the division 4 times in the NFL. I'd say that's a pretty good spot to be in. He's been hired by Bill Belichick not once but twice as an offensive coordinator. He was also hired, last time I checked, by Nick Saban. Must mean he's a pretty good coach. Bill O'Brien's a good coach. I will not allow the Bill O'Brien hate to come out because Bill O'Brien called an RPO against Texas A&M as opposed to, quote, running the ball there at the 5-yard line, and Bryce pulled it. Guess what? Bryce, a Heisman Trophy winner. If I'd him, I'd pull it too. It doesn't mean that Bill O'Brien can't coach. I just don't understand why people arrive at that conclusion as often as they do.
All right, we'll ask Paul Finebaum about it, who will join us after this break on Jox 94.5. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We'll continue that conversation that we just wrapped up before our first break with Paul Finebaum here in just a moment. He joins us each and every week thanks to our friends at Craneworks. Paul, appreciate you hopping on with us and making up the inability to join us from yesterday. We finished a kind of a back and forth with the caller a moment ago, talking about Alabama coaching situations, the Thomas Castellanos deal, and it turned into Bill O'Brien conversation. And you've dealt with this for a lot longer than we have. Why is it that so many coaches who should be considered to be good assistants that left Nick Saban for whatever reason, just it cannot be accepted by many that they are good, quality, even decent head coaches, coordinators, assistants at all once they leave Nick Saban's staff?
Cole, I think some of it just arises from perceptions, correct or not. People, what they hear maybe on a radio show like this, what they read, and then those perceptions just become cemented. And I think in Bill O'Brien's case, there just seemed to be a frustration with him at Alabama. I think a lot of it had to do with his background. He was not, even though he was so successful at Penn State, he just did not look like that prototypical college coach. Whether completely true or not, there was a rap on him that he didn't recruit. And when everything didn't go perfectly, and that's really what was expected under Nick Saban, this cloud over him started to form, and it really, in many ways, has never left.
It's pretty remarkable. Alabama in his tenure there, 24-4, number one overall pick, Heisman Trophy, and an appearance in the national championship game where they lost to the Georgia Bulldogs with a lead in the fourth quarter. But yeah, you're right. He can't coach. He's been hired by Bill Belichick twice. He's been hired by Nick Saban. He's been hired by Ryan Day, and now has been a head coach twice in college football and once in the NFL, but the guy clearly doesn't know ball. What do you think is the deal right now, Paul, with people speaking as confidently as they do in public, a la Thomas Castellanos, where people feel the need to come out and talk about how great they are as opposed to just letting their play do the talking? Why do we live in this era right now?
Well, because there's always somebody listening, and there's always somebody willing to regurgitate it and disseminate it. And I think some of it just goes from when you get to a university, what are you taught? How are you taught? And really, do you listen to what you're told? So you got one guy who popped off, and I think what he did was he took low-hanging fruit. Now, I'm sure Nick Saban listening is going, what do you mean low-hanging fruit? What I mean by that is you just go for the most obvious thing about Alabama. That's Nick Saban. And you just crash the piñata with your baseball bat. And I really, when I saw it yesterday, I laughed. Some people in the media love stuff like that. I think it's a terrible look for him and for the university. And does it make people mad? Yes, of course. But we're also sitting here on June 24th when most of the news cycle has dried up and probably won't change dramatically. So a story like that metastasizes. And, I think it matters. Some people say these things don't matter. Well, I know one thing. Every Alabama player has read it. They really didn't need motivation. It's the first game of the season. But the motivation comes in that the perception is that Florida State sucks. They had the worst season last year that any major team has probably ever had. And even somebody like me who normally would respect a game, I remember the game when Jimbo was there 7 or 8 years ago. It was a 1 versus 3 game. It's impossible for me to respect Florida State. And this comment just made it even worse. I think Alabama will go in there and obliterate them. Will this be the deciding factor? No, it won't be. I just think Alabama has a really good team, and I don't think Florida State is in any sort of condition, this comment or not, to compete with Alabama. So it is going to be a blowout. It's going to be a wipeout. This comment will be stuffed down his throat like somebody being stuffed in a locker in junior high.
Paul Finebaum joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Media Day is now approaching, Paul, and one conversation we are going to have today, because a lot of people will say, well, you only get coach speak at media days, or guys don't really say anything. And I always kind of hear that and say, I feel like you got to sort of try to read between the lines a little bit. And we're going to talk about coaches' language, maybe how to interpret some of that. What do you listen for? What are some indicators, some triggers for you that if a coach says, maybe doesn't say, how he says something that might sound very coach speakish in the media, but you may hear that very differently, and it might actually tune you into something good or bad about a certain team?
Yeah, I think the most important thing about media days, and yes, are we fortunate to have a backstage seat? We are. I think most people sit around and watch it on TV, and thank goodness they do. This is a unique thing that the SEC network has brought. But what we often see is different. What was it a couple of years ago, guys, when Jim McElroy, by the time he showed up on our set, I mean, he was coming apart. I don't even know what was going on with him, but we had one of the most out-of-body conversations I've ever seen. And when he walked away, I felt pretty comfortably that I was not going to see him back at next year's media day. Sometimes it's the body language. So this year, you watch for that. How is Hugh Freeze approaching it? Not what he says on the big stage, but maybe what you guys see from him when he drops by. Maybe what he's like before he comes on the air, because he's always very transparent off the air. What does Mark Stoops look like? Is he moping around? Does he have some canned speech? Does he make any sense, even though his buyout is mammoth, but his record is bad? Things like that. Certain coaches, I don't think you're going to tell a lot. Having just been down to the spring meetings, got a pretty good bullseye on what they look like. And Greg and Cole, you guys saw many of these same coaches at Regions a couple of weeks ago. So, we've been privy to it. The coaches we saw, I don't think will change. It's the ones we haven't seen a lot of or heard a lot of. It's and maybe not, and maybe if they're just on a script. With Nick Saban, you always were anticipatory because you didn't know where he was going to go. His last season, I think I was sitting there next to Greg. We were all looking around like, did he just decide to skip media days? I mean, he was very low key. He didn't have that message that he usually has. So those are a number of the things that you look for and wait for and watch for.
Paul, when you are also at media days and you're listening to, I guess you'd call it the coach speak, is there anything you can learn from their teams by kind of reading through the tea leaves with how they approach the media, how they discuss a specific competition, albeit the quarterback is usually the one that we'd spend the most time on? What are some of the things that stand out to you with what can be learned in those couple days that those guys are there?
Well, having already seen him, I think what you'll hear from Brian Kelly is a tremendous amount of confidence. He'll hit the high points about what they've accomplished, even though last year everybody knows it was a major setback. But he'll be confident. What will other coaches say? I'm really intrigued by Kirby Smart because he's the best coach in the country. He's got probably overall the most consistent program. But are they missing something? How confident is he in Gunnar Stockton? When I saw him recently in Destin, he was having fun with it. Now that's Kirby being Kirby, though, Greg. I had taken a shot at Gunnar Stockton earlier in the day, and Kirby made sure that he appreciated it. But that's just a smart coach, not one that wears his heart on his sleeve. So I think those are things. There's just so many little. I think it's hard to translate to the audience some of the signs that you look for, but you can tell when a coach is about at the end. I mean, they're just literally reciting the talking points. That's what I don't think we really want. I mean, if the three of us appeared in front of media days, we would probably be careful too. because there's so many things. I don't even think it's the big stage that you're going to get in trouble on. It's when you start going to all those other rooms. I've lost track of which rooms are which anymore because there's so many. But when you're getting tired and somebody fires a question, and then you might really get an honest response late in the day, you might get that short fuse, and I think that's when you get the big news sometimes.
Absolutely. Paul, great stuff as always. We appreciate you hopping in and making it up yesterday. Look forward to catching up next week.
See you next Monday. Thanks, guys.
Paul Finebaum joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline with us each and every week, thanks to our friends at Craneworks. So, coach speak, what does it mean? What do we interpret from it? We can have that conversation on the other side. Also, we'll talk to our friend Pete Nikkos at 8 a.m. He was the one that had this conversation with Thomas Castellanos of Nick Saban not being able to save Alabama, therefore giving him some extra confidence against the Crimson Tide in Florida State's opener. Eric Mac Lain's going to be with us at 8:30. He'll give us his thoughts on what Florida State will be this year. There are some other ACC, SEC openers that we want Eric's thoughts on because there's another conversation I want to have about SEC teams' starts this upcoming season. And Jason Caldwell is going to update us on Auburn recruiting at 9. Yesterday was a big flip day for a lot of recruits from a lot of different schools to a lot of other schools. Pretty good news for one in-state team. Not great news from another in-state team. We'll have that for you as well. First, tell you about our friends at Train, Alabama Heat and Humidity. You know it's brutal. Don't let it affect your home and family. Keep them comfortable with an affordable Train cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand 11 consecutive years. They're the official cooling partner here at Jox. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It's hard to stop a train. More of that next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. I'm trying to bring some peace and harmony to the show here. Some levity.
No.
Oh,
Too deep, too dark.
have at it.
No, we're in a good spot.
Oh, okay. Are you in a good spot?
I'm in a great spot.
Okay.
I'm always in a good spot. I like our show. I like work. Big work guy.
Mentioned it was a big recruiting day yesterday. Not great news for Auburn yesterday, as four-star linebacker Shadarius Tootle flips from Auburn to Georgia, 6'3", 235 out of Mobile. He's been committed to Auburn since July of 24. Michigan picks up four-star defensive lineman Titan Davis, 6'5", 270 from St. Louis. Apparently, now listen, I'm going to tell you some of these, but some of these are off of a graphic. So I don't know if he had an offer or not. I just read the graphics. And I always assume if it's a graphic made of it, it's real, okay?
For sure.
If Hayes Fawcett puts it up there, it's real. He commits to Michigan over Alabama. Oklahoma gets four-star edge Daniel Norman. Makes sense. He's out of Fort Lauderdale. 6'4", 230. You also get 2026 linebacker Brian Jordan. I probably butchered that one, and I apologize, Brian. Miami gets four-star safety Jalen Jones, who commits over Florida and Auburn. 5'11", 175 out of Davie, Florida. Minnesota showing up in the recruiting conversation. Four-star athlete Roman Voss.
Like the water?
It is good. He commits over Alabama to Minnesota. So Minnesota gets the rare recruiting win against the Tide. He's the number one player in the state of Minnesota.
It's like 2004 all over again.
225-pound safety.
Okay.
Where is
6'4", 225?
Yeah, where's Roman going to play in college?
I got 100, says he plays linebacker.
Could have been Corey Reamer again, right there for the Tide.
6'4", 225. I don't know.
Pretty big.
A rangy safety at 225, I'm all about, but
Hey.
Roman Voss.
it's a good name. Mark his name. Watch him be just a complete dude.
Let's see here.
Like
Roman Voss, rangy safety. Now, if you'd have gone heady safety.
That's where we're going.
Let's see where you're going.
That's
four-star tight end Xavier Tiller has committed to Florida State, 6'5", 225 from Fairburn, Georgia, over Alabama and Auburn.
The old double L.
Why not just put over Alabama, Auburn, Troy, Jacksonville State, UAB,
the whole state,
Alabama A&M, Alabama State, North Alabama,
everybody,
South Alabama,
the whole one.
Four-star wide receiver Devin Carter has flipped to Florida State from Auburn, 6'1", 175. Now, if you remember the name Dexter Carter at Florida State, that was his father. So some of that makes a little bit of sense.
That does.
They also got four-star quarterback Jaden O'Neal. And Alabama gets a commitment from 2026 safety. This is not going to happen. R-I-H-Y-E-A-L.
R-I-H-Y-E-A-L.
Rail?
Rail.
Rail?
I don't know. That feels right. Let's go with it.
All right. Rail Kelly flips from Rutgers to Alabama.
Okay.
See?
Alabama with the rare recruiting steal from Rutgers.
Let's go.
Been trying to tell y'all.
You don't just step in at Piscataway and steal recruits from Rutgers.
Yeah, you do.
He's from Cincy.
When you're Bama.
I got you.
6'3", 185. Four-star running back Javari Burnett flips from Illinois to Alabama.
Oh my goodness.
Take that, Brett Bielema.
He is angry. He is angry.
And they said Nick Saban's not there to save him. And they go get a 6 foot, 185-pound running back from Tampa. By the way, that Alabama staff, I'm going to tell you this, they can recruit Tampa. That is a fact.
They got Tampa?
They got Tampa locked
Got it
up.
unlocked.
Big Tampa squad?
Here we go.
Go look at the lineage of that staff. They're going to recruit Tampa
They're going to get
really
Tampa.
well.
That's what you're telling me? You think there's a Tampa pipeline? Pretty good.
This
pipeline.
morning on
Right.
First Take, Alabama infiltrates Big Ten country.
Let's go.
Your thoughts?
in Tampa.
Well, they stole recruits from Illinois and Rutgers. Go with my narrative here.
Ugh.
You're killing it.
I told you.
I'm trying to make headlines.
Kalen DeBoer can't recruit the South. I told you.
Who's won the last 2 big national championships?
Who?
Who's won the last 2 national championships?
Big Ten.
Might not need to recruit the South.
Ooh, all the best players are up north.
That's what they say.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying it might not be a bad thing to infiltrate Big Ten country, even though the kids are from the South.
Something tells me
Gotta
just
get them.
Cincinnati's not the South.
I would like
No,
to
no.
just acknowledge something tells me this staff, led by Kalen DeBoer, Courtney Morgan in particular, the GM, for those that are unaware, I think because of how this staff is set up, they put a high premium on potential upside, and I don't think they care about the stars. And I love that because they want the culture guys that have upside. There's a reason why Courtney Morgan was the architect of not just the Washington national championship run.
Culture doesn't win signing day, Greg, nor does it make good for graphics.
Doesn't.
Give me
but-
the last culture graphic you saw that got retweets.
Well,
I don't think it exists.
he was the architect of the Washington roster and had a heavy influence on the Michigan roster as well. So I think he knows what he's doing. I don't care about the stars, never have. When they went and got Keelan Russell from SMU, everyone's like, who? And then all of a sudden, fast forward through his senior year, he's the hottest prospect in college
He's
football.
going to beat out Ty Simpson, I'm told.
Day one.
Alabama also got a commitment from Chris Booker, an interior offensive lineman from Hapeville Charter School in Atlanta. Also, 2026 defensive lineman J.J. French, 6'2", 270 from Indianapolis. Over Michigan and Tennessee.
Let's
Alabama's
go.
dominating the Big Ten right now.
Let's go.
Is what that's your
Yep.
takeaway. That's what you need
Wow,
to know.
hottest take yet? Tennessee Big Ten country?
Might as well be.
It's in
Not
the,
last December,
it's in
but
the
other than
mountains.
that, yes.
It's in the mountains.
But not a great recruiting day for Auburn. And that's why Jason Caldwell is going to join us at 9 o'clock this morning. We'll ask him, are there real things to be concerned about? What should we be paying attention to? And is there still value out there for Auburn to be able to go grab in this recruiting class that could potentially save it?
Are you
If-
optimistic about it? There are things.
I have no idea. What
Dude,
it's recruiting.
I know you scour the message boards.
Oh, because they're so lovely to me. It would put me in a great mood to go read how much people hate me every day. Why would I
Heck
not
yeah.
do that?
Let's go. Hate fuels heart.
I'm all about added value. And so we're going to give you a little bit of extra added value right here on Jox. Introduce you to our friend and wealth advisor, Tad Hill, your trusted retirement planning partner. Tad is the co-host of the Retire with Freedom radio and TV shows in Birmingham and Huntsville, also designated by Forbes as the #1 financial securities professional in the state of Alabama, multiple years running. He's a 5-star. Tad, what do you have for us today? 800-239-9569 if you'd like to get in. 800-239-WJOX. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. You can be a part. Michael Kirby tweets in, stand by for double-barreled R.A. Greg McElroy and at Cole Cubelic this morning. I feel like I've been calm this morning. I'm trying to bring the levity here. Greg Skipworth tweets in, Bill O'Brien produced a Heisman winner at Alabama using his offense. How many other Bama OCs can say the same thing?
He also scored 41 points a game in his tenure.
Michael Kirby tweets in after Trey's call, I guess the bars open early in Nashville. Do they close? I don't even know. Unhipster tweets in, someone get Greg McElroy Snickers. Ooh.
There's people need to do some due diligence on before they call into this show. If you're coming in just throwing things guns ablazing, you're gonna get called out. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Russell Terry tweets in, clip this segment, send it to First Take. They'll have a topic for a month.
What does Boston College do in 2025? Stephen A. Smith reacts next.
Here's a new one for you. Not into the show, but just totally random here as we are referencing some recruiting news and different things. Tyler, hold on one second. Sports writer covering high schools for the Tennessee and Tyler Palmatier. He tweets out, breaking! Lipscomb Academy freshman quarterback Ty Snell, who has offers from Tennessee and Ohio State, is leaving the school.
What?
Snell's family hasn't decided where he'll enroll this fall. I think we know what that means.
Freshman? You're telling me he's a freshman?
Here you go.
In high school.
Let me know what you think.
God, I'm back. I can't wait.
Yo, class of 2029, baby. Let's go.
Tennessee and Ohio State offers?
Yeah.
That means his 8th grade tape got him offers?
But are they committable?
I don't know.
Not important.
8th grade tape? Hey. That means he's a baller.
Somebody was talking to me about this yesterday, middle school football, or kids starting football, different things, and I have a different viewpoint on it, and a lot of people would hate it and not agree with it, but whatever. I was like, here's my theory. I think I think a lot of I think from a football perspective, a lot of the skills are not necessarily transferable in the very young ages of it. Therefore, I think some of the repetitive contact is not necessary. So, like, I remember to my 8th grade, 7th grade football teams, the guys who absolutely dominated. I could say their names right now. I'm not going to do it. Dominated. Caught passes over everybody. Had 20, 25 carries a game. Were not tackled. Most of them did not play high school football.
Really?
And the ones that did were not heavy contributors. Because physically, they were so different than all the other kids in middle school that there's nothing anybody could do about it.
Wait, hang on a second. So you're telling me we don't know?
No, we know. That's football. We're not talking about baseball or basketball. Pete Nikkos on Thomas Castellanos next. Does this song start very similar to There Goes My Hero? Every time this song starts, I feel like it's going to, there goes my hero. Watch him as it.
Until you
It's
said
not
it.
it, though.
Until you said it, I never really thought about it, but you're not
It's
wrong.
probably just a me problem.
It's all good.
There goes my.
It's the acoustics of the studio that we're
I
in.
mean, I can hear it.
If they would have done this in an amphitheater, it wouldn't sound that
It
way.
wouldn't sound like that.
See?
We're
how the
going to move
noise
on to Pete
reverberates.
Nikkos here in just a moment. Before we do, if you're a coach that got fired and needs someone to help you move, who should you call, Greg?
If you got run, call Crocker Moving Services. It's a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys. And you can trust them in your home. And is your whole home packed to move? Your company headquarters moved across the country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, they got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you purchase and need to get to your home. Call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website is crockermovingservices.com. It's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
All right, let's go to the Higginbotham hotline now. Welcome in Pete Nikkos of the On3 Sports Network. Pete, how you doing this morning?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
We didn't get a lot of the audio from your conversation with Thomas Castellanos. Of course, we get a lot of the quotes in print, so we don't hear the tone. We don't hear the intent a lot of times. Can you just take us further as to kind of how this conversation came about and what else you took away from it other than maybe the actual statements that we've seen in print?
Yeah, got the chance to talk to Thomas on Friday, and you could just tell from kind of the way the interview started and everything that he was pretty fired up, and he was going to be honest in himself, and he was going to say some stuff and get some stuff off his chest that he's definitely kind of, he hasn't really been able to talk about how things ended at Boston College in his own point of view very much. So we started there, and we talked about going to Florida State, and we talked about the chance to work with Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn. And, the quote that everyone's talking about today and yesterday, I mean, that was just the last question in the interview where I was just straight up like, how excited are you to play against Alabama? And he kind of, did what he wanted to do with it. But I think this is a guy who his confidence level's high. He finally feels comfortable in an offensive system for the first time in probably 18 months. And he feels like he has like some legit playmakers around him and that they can surprise some people this fall.
How do you think the skill set that he's utilized in the past, just heavy run emphasis, really dynamic off schedule, how do you think that meshes with Gus Malzahn? And frankly, who has the keys to the car? Because Gus's system is very different than that of what Mike Norvell's utilized in the past.
Yeah. From talking to Thomas, I think it definitely sounds like it's a Gus Malzahn kind of offense that they're running that he has experience in. Everything I've been told, and I mean, guys, we'll really get the full picture week one when they actually put the ball on the field. But it sounds like Gus is going to have a really big say in what this offense does and what plays are called, obviously. So that's kind of my indications from what I've heard, and then also just talking to Castellanos and what he's had to say about how comfortable he is. But I thought it was also interesting to hear him, like he feels like there's a significant talent jump in who he's being surrounded in this season compared to the last few years at Boston College. And you don't hear a lot of players just come out and say it like he did. So interested to see how that kind of all shows up on the field and if it does make an impact the way he was telling me he thinks it will.
We're visiting with Pete Nikkos of the On3 Sports Network. Conversation with Thomas Castellanos a couple days ago that turned into some inflammatory comments that some people are taking at least that way. And obviously he has room to be confident. The offense should feature him if it's what we think it's going to be. And then he's had some success on the field. What else did you learn about Florida State, though, outside of him? Maybe his teammates, maybe the defense? Because we're struggling to sort of build a confident opinion of what that team is going to look like week one. How did your opinion change of it after this conversation?
I don't think I learned a lot more about the defense or anything like that, Cole, but I think the biggest thing I learned was that they are uber aware that they went 2-10 last season, and that's not going to fly in Tallahassee. And, you look across the country, not everyone is always cognizant of, like, how bad last season was and how they have to get better in 2025. So I know it sounds cliche, but for him to kind of come out swinging the way he did and be so honest about how they're desperate and how, he's playing to win games and save jobs, like that's not stuff you hear every day. And that was a little eye-opening for me to just know how aware he is that they need to win this year at Florida State at all costs.
What does winning look like? I mean, what do you think is appropriate? Because I don't think their roster at this point would indicate a tremendous amount of continuity, which is probably for the best. But then again, when you put a bunch of new pieces in place, it's not always a guaranteed success either. So what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, and you bring up that point, and we all thought they were going to reload last year because we all thought they did well in the portal and it just didn't mesh that way. So that's going to be a question that gets brought up again the next couple months. I mean, I say winning for Florida State this year is having a winning record and making a bowl game. I don't know if that people in Tallahassee are going to tell me that bar's too low, but I think that's what the standard has to be. Now, if they do more than that, I mean, kudos to them, but I think there's still a lot of question marks about this team and what they're going to look like.
Who have you had a conversation with that did change? Because you've had a lot of conversations with different players the last 2-3 weeks, and a lot of those comments been making the rounds. But, like, I know you talked to Miller Moss. I know you talked to a couple other high-profile players. Who have you talked to that has maybe shifted your opinion one way or the other, any direction, on what that team might be this fall?
That Miller Moss conversation was super interesting just because of everything he's dealt with this year. I also talked to Justice Haynes, who showed up at Michigan, and he feels like he didn't change my opinion about what Michigan is going to be, because I think they're still going to be pretty good. The one guy who I talked to who was probably one of the most impressive I've talked to and just having it all put together was Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back. And he seems extremely well aware of what the standard is this year at Notre Dame to win a national title. And it seems like, I walked away more impressed with Notre Dame than I did going into the interview. So that's one. And then, I had the chance to talk to Sam Levitt and Kenny Dillingham and super interested to watch how it plays out this season at Arizona State. I think they have a chance to make the playoff again.
I think we're both high on Arizona State, and we both love Jeremiah Love. I mean, getting to visit with him at the Sugar Bowl, super impressive kid. Pavia's made a bunch of noise talking to different people in the last couple of weeks. Somebody that I think at least their eyes are now open on Vanderbilt that maybe they weren't before. Do you expect things to be much different, much better, the same in Nashville this year?
The interesting thing about Diego Pavia is, like, similar to Thomas Castellanos, like, they both said some super interesting things that obviously got social media buzzing, but now they're also going to have bigger targets on their back. So how do they handle that? That's definitely something that Diego Pavia is going to have to handle, especially knowing that he beat Alabama last year, knowing that he's talking a big game going into media days. Like, there's definitely going to be a bigger target on his back than there was last year, that's for sure. So how does Vanderbilt and him handle that is going to really, have a big impact on how 2025 plays out.
What do you make of just the offense and the surprise element that kind of was unleashed on Alabama to an extent last year, but on other teams as well? Virginia Tech fell victim to it early in the season. But there was an element of the surprise with that offense that I think now they will not have that benefit anymore, because I think a vast majority of several teams' offseason study was that offense. So how much will that play a role in kind of catching some people off guard?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely – no one's going to be surprised that, Vanderbilt is better than it has historically been, or what the offense is going to look like. That's all out the window. That's a known thing now. So now it's how does the offense evolve and take the next step? Eli Stowers comes back. I think that's a big win for Diego Pavia. I thought they had a couple good pickups in the portal. How does that change what the offense looks like? Diego Pavia had a comment on Bustin' with the Boys about how he has more weapons in the passing game now. Does that mean the Vanderbilt offense is going to look a little bit different? These are all questions that, like, we would all look the answer to, and gonna try to keep doing some interviews and figure that out. But if they evolve a little bit, then maybe, they can throw in some more wrinkles and stuff, and it isn't as a known commodity as it will be going into 2025.
Pete, you focus on the portal. You dabble in recruiting a little bit. You're involved in some of those conversations. You know a little bit about that world. There were multiple flips from Auburn to other schools yesterday. There are people that are beginning to sort of build momentum that things are headed south for Hugh Freeze and his staff, specifically in recruiting. What's the noise out there in the recruiting circles about sort of where Auburn is in recruiting right now?
Yeah, so they have 5 commits right now, last I checked. Definitely not where you want to be right now, but obviously still a lot of time to make that up at the same time. I would just say that Auburn they might not have the most momentum right now, but they have plenty of time to turn it around. And I don't think that this is an indictment on Hugh Freeze. I think it's just a matter of, maybe Auburn doesn't want to pay this much for one guy or another guy. And I think that's just a nature of the beast. And we're having conversations at On3 right now, and I'd love your take on this too. But do we need to change our perception on what recruiting looks like? And this isn't an excuse for Auburn, because they definitely still need to add a lot. But is the Alabama classes with 25 kids and 18 5-stars or something, is that dead? Can that not happen now with how much money everyone else is spending and the impact of the transfer portal? So I think we're kind of figuring that all out in lifetime. And I think that Auburn definitely has a ways to go in recruiting, but I also think that, they brought in a lot in the portal. Does that change the financials and how much they're willing to deploy in recruiting, things like that? So, those are the conversations I'm having right now and trying to figure it all out.
How much of that has to do, though, with Auburn spending as much as they did on this year's roster?
It has a ton to do with it.
I think they don't have the money to guarantee right now, because it's spoken for in this class.
Yeah,
and
I'm not going to say they don't have the money, but I will say that I think that a lot of SEC teams went all in on this year because it was the last one without, revenue sharing really taking hold. And now they're trying to make a conscious effort of, let's not overspend on our 2026 budget before we get to December in the transfer portal. So that's all making an impact right now. And the other thing being talked about but not being talked about as publicly is so all these coaches, yes, they're trying to do OVs and hold high school camps right now, but they're also trying to make sure their entire roster is paid out before July 1st. There's a lot of financial gymnastics going on right now, so they don't have to worry about paying guys after July 1 and dealing with revenue sharing and this new clearinghouse and stuff. So this June specifically has taken a whole life of its own.
Pete, great stuff, man. Thanks for hopping on with us. Definitely appreciate you hanging out. It's all interesting stuff. I love your question there about kind of how we should be viewing some of these classes. It's not the same sport, but we hear Rick Pitino say, we're not signing any high school kids. So much is going to be dependent on need. You can't, but it can be very different, like you said, than some of the Saban classes that we're getting used to. It might not be that way anymore.
Awesome, guys.
Thanks, Pete. Talk to you soon.
Yep, appreciate it.
Pete Nikkos of the On3 Network joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Good conversation. We'll continue parts of it on the other side. First, Craig, tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's has been my go-to for a really long time. Since we moved back, it's been the only place I've shopped for luxury jewelry. And I'm telling you, man, it just keeps getting better. Every time I walk in the door at Bromberg's, I'm continually impressed by the service, which has never, ever, ever faltered. It's the absolute best. But the inventory and the selection and just the quality of the natural diamonds that they have there in their store so that you can go and see it for yourself, see it, touch it, experience it right there, because it's not like you're looking online and trying to find pictures of diamonds. No, you get to see it, hold it, check the GIA certification, look at the clarity, look at the color. They take it outside. They'll show you what it looks like in natural daylight. I mean, they just go the extra mile to make sure that you have a great understanding of what it is you're buying so that you can buy something that will last in your family for multiple generations. So go and check out Bromberg's. They're the very best. There's a reason why I've been doing business for nearly 200 years by going and seeing them at Bromberg's in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit.
All right, we'll continue some of these conversations. Remember, Eric Mac Lain coming up in 15 minutes to also talk Florida State. That's all next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, a lot of different directions we could go after that visit with Pete Nikkos, but I wanted to focus in on maybe what this matchup could be with Florida State. And we'll kind of get that conversation out of the way, because another one that I want to have later in the show, Greg, is what's the worst case scenario at the midway point, or maybe even a little bit before that, for some SEC teams? Because some of the schedule's a little more intriguing than people would imagine. Let's just start with Alabama here. We'll go, what week is Red River? Is that week 6?
I want to say Red River is, I'll tell you right now, I believe it's like October 11th, right around there. Stand by.
I don't think that helps me with the week,
October 11th. So that would have been, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, week 7.
All right, so we'll say headed into week 7, worst case scenario, because I had a conversation with our friend Josh Pate last night, and he brought up the reality that Oklahoma could, or Texas, excuse me, could be 3-2 going into Red River. And the reason he brought that up is because of the confidence that I told him I had in Texas right now. And he's like, what if I told you they're 3-2 going in to play Oklahoma? I'd say no. He's like, look at the schedule. Ohio State, Florida, they can't lose both those on the road. Could. But oftentimes we fail to continue to give confidence to the teams that we have confidence in. Like, we can look at any schedule and say teams could lose those games.
Yes.
But it did kind of get me thinking in a little bit of a different direction, and that was, well, what's, like Texas, for example, what's worst case scenario heading into that Oklahoma game?
Who likes to talk about worst case scenarios, though? You just get all depressed before the season. All right, worst case scenario,
Good.
1-4.
No.
All right, so you want
Ohio State on the road.
Who do you want to do? Texas first.
Yeah, Ohio State on the road, they can lose that one.
Yeah, absolutely, you can lose.
San
to
Jose
Ohio
State at home. UTEP at home.
Sam Houston.
At home. They're not dropping those. At Florida, they can lose that one. So 3-2 going into Oklahoma.
I don't think they're losing. Ohio State's got some question marks now. Like, can they lose it? Sure, but it's not a guarantee.
Well, it's funny because the people that are going to say Texas could be 3-2 going to that one, they will point to Texas and say, well, you lost both your tackles. You lost some interior defensive line. But they're not going to say the same things about Ohio State and Florida. You got to say Ohio State lost a lot of their D-line. Ohio State's losing their quarterback. Ohio State's going to move some things around their offensive line.
Ohio
State lost their running backs. I mean, they're a different team too.
I think what's amazing is that no one wants to acknowledge the possibility that both quarterbacks are not as good as you think they're going to be.
It's fair.
Not saying they won't be.
I'll
just
say
saying
this.
That's a possibility.
If you're Texas, would you rather get Ohio State week 1 or week 8?
I'd rather get them week 1.
Absolutely. 100%. So I don't think that, I think the chances of that are slim, but it is intriguing to look at maybe that worst case scenario. So with Alabama, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll say going into the Missouri game, or let's say going into the Tennessee game. Tennessee at home, worst case scenario for Alabama. Florida State on the road.
I just don't think they lose that one.
UL Monroe.
No.
Wisconsin.
No.
Keep in mind, we're going worst case scenario here.
Correct.
At Georgia.
No. Yeah, they could lose that one, obviously.
Vanderbilt.
At home?
That is where the game will be played.
I think they'll get that.
So you're telling me the absolute worst case scenario, doomsday scenario for Alabama this year, heading into Missouri on October the 11th.
I think they could lose to Missouri. But I don't think they could lose. I don't think they'll lose to Vandy at home.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games going in. So you think 4-2 with losses at Georgia, at Missouri, worst case scenario.
Yes.
Damian? At Florida State, UL Monroe, Wisconsin, at Georgia, Vandy, at Missouri before you play Tennessee. What is the absolute worst case scenario?
They lose to Georgia.
I think the worst
That's
case.
That's it.
I think worst case scenario is 4-2, but I don't necessarily know which 2 that might be. You know what I mean? Like, worst case scenario, Georgia's
let's not
obviously
say
one of them.
that Malzahn and Norvell can't put something together that looks a little bit different, that has Kane Wommack off balance, and Castellanos can have a good game. I mean, Florida State's got some players. Things could go bad, and you could drop that game.
You could.
I would say worst case 3 losses, kind of where you're going, that they could be a couple different places. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not saying that. Do not take that quote by itself and say that that's what I meant. We're going total doomsday scenario here. Florida State, Georgia, Vandy. Florida State, Georgia, Missouri. Could happen.
You're not losing to Vandy at home.
I don't think they're losing 3 games before Tennessee, but I do think
they'll
that's
be
the worst
5-1
case
going
scenario.
Tennessee.
I do think that is
Maybe
the worst
6-0.
case scenario.
Just absolute mayhem.
Yes, it can happen.
Good.
Florida.
RIP our radio show. If it does. All right, Florida,
I feel like that
stand
would
by.
help the
Florida's
radio
bad.
show.
I've looked this up already. Florida could lose.
Not to the Long Island Sharks.
All right, so we're at the midway point.
South Florida. Yes, we got 1, 2, 3, 4,
They could be 2 and
5,
4.
6, 7. Let's say going to Georgia.
They could
6 games.
No, that's not 6. That's like 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
The first
7 games going into the Georgia game. What's the doomsday scenario record?
3 and 4.
Because this is one of the other things that I handed Josh yesterday. I said, all right, well, you're talking about Texas maybe losing to Florida. Have you seen the Texas runway to that game? You're at LSU, you're at Miami, you get a week off, and then you get Texas. Like, let's not just pretend like they got cakewalk into that game.
No, they 2
You have
and
to
4
take that
is-
into consideration.
2 and 4 going to the Mississippi State game is absolutely possible. You got 3 games on the road at Miami, LSU, and A&M. All 3, I think, are top 15 teams.
All losable.
And then you got Texas at home.
Yeah, losable.
Like 2 and 4
I'll
at
say
the midway point is absolutely possible.
I'll say doomsday scenario is 1 and 5 because I think South Florida's going to be good.
I disagree.
You don't think South Florida's going to be
They'll
good?
get South Florida.
Why are you not allowed to let yourself go to the darkest place possible?
Tell me what the record is with G5 teams at SEC teams in the last 5 years. And don't give me
don't have it.
Toledo at Mississippi State.
Well, that's one. So one
South
for the
Florida
SEC
is
right there.
light. They will get pushed off the ball.
Didn't Georgia Southern win at Florida?
That was like 10 years ago.
I'm just trying to come up with things.
Right now we got Toledo and Mississippi State. So we
Will
got 0
Muschamp
and 1.
has had 5 jobs since then.
I do think that I'll say this. This is why the SEC is going to be so interesting this year. Because Florida is grouped in with a lot of other teams in this exact scenario that I could see them being 1 and 5. I could see them being 6 and 0. Honestly. I mean, is it out of the realm of possibility that Florida's 6 and 0 playing Georgia? Is there a scenario in your brain that could allow Florida to be 6 and 0 when they play Georgia?
No.
Or 7 and 0?
No.
It's not possible. It's not
I'd put it-
feasible
I'd put it at 0% chance.
with Miami and
It's not about
the
that.
unknowns that they have.
It's not about
LSU,
that.
the inability to hand off the football, and your two best
It's
defensive
not
players
about that. It's about
coming off injuries. A&M not having certainties at quarterback.
It's not
losing
about
a lot on
that.
the D line.
It's about the gauntlet. Like if you think you can run that 4-game gauntlet without losing one, I got some motion front property you can buy in Arizona.
Okay.
I don't see it. Like I mean, and I don't care. Put Ohio State, the defending champs, on that run.
I'll give you Georgia heading into the Florida game. What's the doomsday scenario for them? What's the worst case scenario? Marshall, Austin P at Tennessee, week off, Bama, Kentucky, at Auburn, Ole Miss.
Worst case scenario, going to Florida. Why are we going so far? Why are we going so deep? That's like
It's 2 off weeks in there. So I'm going amount of games. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the same number of games we're talking about with Florida.
worst case scenario is 3 losses.
Bama, Auburn, Ole Miss.
Yeah. Or Tennessee, Bama, Auburn. Like one of the 3 of those 4. That's worst case scenario.
I don't. Yeah, the worst case scenario could fall apart. Yeah.
But
We're not taking.
I'd look at their
There's one
matchup.
word in this whole scenario none of us have mentioned. Injury.
correct. But doomsday
Because we're talking doomsday now, and injury's a part of that.
Doomsday scenarios are hard to envision because I don't like to see the worst. But I look at their matchup against Tennessee the last couple of years, and it has not been problematic. And I think that version of Tennessee was better than the version of Tennessee that we're going to get this year. I think the Georgia version of this year has a chance to be about the same, maybe slight down as far as upside compared to where they were 2 years ago, but probably about the same as what they were last year.
You know when
Great.
the last time Tennessee beat Georgia was?
Josh Dobbs,
I had to
Hail
go-
Mary, right?
Yeah, I had to go look it up because I forgot.
2015.
16.
16. Yeah.
It's been a minute, man. Like you said, that matchup has not looked
it's not good for
competitive.
Tennessee.
31-17, 38-10, 27-13, 41-17, 44-21, 43-14, 38-12, 41-0. Your scores since the last time Tennessee beat Georgia. But times they are a-changing, which is why we'll have Eric Mac Lain on next on Jox 94.5. So if the Doomsday scenario for Alabama is accurate, there's probably a loss to Florida State in there. What's that team going to look like? We mentioned with Pete Nikkos a little bit earlier, we're having trouble formulating a confident opinion on exactly what the Seminoles are going to look like because there are so many unknowns. There are so many different teams. There are so many parts of it that we have not seen operate together, specifically the offensive coordinator. Greg and I have talked about it, like whose offense is it going to be? Those two offenses don't mirror one another. So there are a lot of things about it that could look very different. And if you'd like your floors to look different, Greg, who should you call?
That'd be Shinar Flooring. They do an amazing job when it comes to taking care of your home and making sure that your floor looks fantastic. And they right now have over 40,000 square feet of Core-Tec flooring in stock. They're the only dealer with that much inventory in stock. So they're going to give it away for great deals. You get $5 off per box when you order it from Shinar Flooring. That's that Core-Tec. It's 100% waterproof, pet-proof, durable. It's fantastic. But if you're thinking about upgrading your carpet, maybe making some other changes to your floor, and you don't want to go with Core-Tec, that's fine as well. The sky's the limit on what you can save. You get 15% off flooring now through July 2nd. So you have just a few more days to take advantage of this. So savings start at $150 and only go up from there. You get 12 months financing with approved credit, and you can see it all online at fooandyou.com.
All right, let's go to the Higginbotham Hotline now. Welcome in Eric Mac Lain of the ACC Network. Your 1,000-foot view of Florida State right now heading into this season is what?
Yeah, I think kind of similar to what you just said there. There's some unknown pieces. Excited to see, what these guys can do together. I think, when you look at the quarterback situation from a year ago and bringing in a guy in DJ Uiagalelei that was known to be extremely not mobile, could not get around, could not function. That was going to be a drastic difference in what they had in Travis there, Jordan Travis, and the things that he was able to do for years. And so it was kind of a conflict of how is this going to work? How is this going to translate? And then we saw it, be the absolute worst season in FSU history, and it didn't work. Well, now you feel a little bit more comfortable. You have a guy in Tommy Castellanos that can move around, that is very active, and when he's not put in a box and he's not kind of told what to do and how to do it, man, he's really special. And I think that they are going to fully embrace that and allow Tommy to be creative, allow him to create, and to get Florida State in the best situation play-wise.
What do you make of just the blend that could be Castellanos' skill set and Gus Malzahn's offense? We know it's thrived when he's had an extremely mobile quarterback, but hasn't been quite as consistent the last couple of years at UCF. What do you think is likely for that mesh and that marriage?
Yeah, I think it's probably the easiest thing to grasp, and looking at a guy like Nick Marshall years ago, and then seeing the, guy that can create, that maybe isn't necessarily when you think of prototypical quarterback, but a guy that can make things happen, a guy that can be very dynamic, push the ball downfield, leadership qualities, things of that nature. I think it excites you. And again, I say easy because, we want to compare things to great things. We don't want to, just say, oh, look at this. It could be something of that nature. So I think that freedom is going to be there. I've had conversations with Tommy early on, and then as early as, a couple of weeks ago, and he's thrilled with what they're presenting, with the offense, with how they went in spring, and just the things that they're going to continue to build on. So I think you see a guy that really has the keys to the car, and is going to be able to just go out there and do his thing as he sees fit. It's not going to be stay in the pocket, do this, go through X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, check down. It's going to be, what do you see, get to it quickly, or take off and create with your legs.
Eric Mac Lain joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline of the ACC Network, talking some early SEC-ACC matchups. What about the other side of the football for Florida State? We've seen that group be pretty good recently. We've seen them a little bit of a drop-off last year. There's more of an exchange of personnel this year. What are your expectations there?
Yeah, I think, again, you talk about it's interesting because we need to see it on the field because there's a lot of unknown. They're going to a 3-3-5. There'll be multiple, just like everybody is, but we know what Coach White does, and that's try to be aggressive, try to get athletes on the field, come from a lot of different places. Listen, Cole, you and I both know when I only see 3 defensive linemen in front of me, I kind of like those odds. But when guys are moving around, when targeting becomes an issue in regards to we don't necessarily know where we're going to. We don't know where we're working our double team. Maybe we're just going to an area and catching what we see. If you can be creative and fire blitzes from random places, then it can get really exciting. Personnel-wise, again, some new faces over there. When you look at the defensive tackle position, you look at defensive end, edge guys, and some other linebackers that really have to step up. I think that defensive backfield is going to be electric as usual. I mean, they've got some really fun stars that I think specifically looking at Shaheem Brown kind of at the safety position, that will be fun to watch. It's just going to be how can they stop the run? How are they going to continue to be physical? And what do they show from that 3-3-5?
What do they look like from a personnel standpoint on defense? Because I know that their scheme will adjust, and I know they'll have athletic personnel, but how talented are they based on what's coming back from last year?
Yeah, I think it's the secondary very talented. I think there's pieces that we just need to learn more of. Like, I love what Darnell Jackson can do, right? Like, he's a big guy. He's going to be fully healthy, ready to go, kind of that nose tackle. And you're looking at a guy like 6'5", 6'6", just ready to go, excited to be a Seminole and really be able to do his thing. But then on the edge, are you going to have true defensive ends like you probably have in the past couple of years? Not quite, guys that were NFL caliber, really, really good. Those guys are going to continue to develop, and maybe they get there. And then you've got kind of that jack stand-up position that I'm excited to see what it can be, because I love versatility, right? And I love when you don't just look at the same thing every single play. So I think you need to find who's that going to be from a linebacking standpoint that, is it a Stephon Thompson, a guy that had, really good job at Syracuse and faced some injuries there and wasn't able to kind of be his final form? Can he do that now at Florida State? So I think, Greg, the pieces are there. It's just going to be how does it translate? Can they reach their full potential type thing? Eric
Mac Lain of the ACC Network with us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Want to go 1,000-foot view of a couple of these other SEC, ACC matchups early. I love the LSU-Clemson matchup for multiple reasons, mainly because both teams have glaring strengths that you really can't argue. Both teams have a few big issues that they should be concerned about, basically places that you could probably attack and have success if you're capable there. From a Clemson perspective, what do you fear most? What concerns you most about what LSU has going into this season?
I think it's obvious when you have the quarterback matchup that you're going to. It's a fascinating thing, right? You want to see who's going to be ready for the moment, who's going to step up. Accuracy, will be at an all-time high. You're looking at some defenses that are going to have NFL guys everywhere. So I think that's something that is certainly fascinating. And then just defensively, what kind of issues will they present? Clemson has a veteran offensive line. These guys have been there, done that, seen a lot of different things. But again, the playmakers that LSU is going to have and the schemes that I think they're going to try to draw up, how can you make sure that you're focused on what you do and not overly concerned about what they're presenting? Like, let's trust our process and do what it takes on our side.
What do you think it would mean for Clemson if they were to lose this game? I know what it means if they win. That's great. All signs point to doing what it is we think they're all capable of doing this year, and that's maybe going and running and making a run at the playoff, winning the championship. I think all those things are absolutely achievable. But in defeat, what does that mean for Clemson, and what will the reaction be?
Yeah, I think it's, margin of victory or defeat will be fascinating. And how far do people start leaning or, jumping ship or things of that nature. But, I think for all these week one matchups, and there are a lot of big ones, which is very exciting. And, I hope we just continue to get more and more of these marquee matchups. And I love that we're doing them on site. Like, let's keep the games at the schools. I think that's so important and really exciting. But at the end of the day, Greg, really, it's a litmus test, right? Where are we? Where are we as a team? Are we ready to compete and make championship runs now? Do we have to continue to develop and become closer as a team and get, where our goals want to be? I think that, obviously the way the schedule sets up and who knows what teams will do throughout the season, but, starting and finishing, with teams that have a lot of excitement in LSU and South Carolina, there's opportunity for Clemson, this expanded playoff, all these different things. It's a whole new world having 12 teams instead of just the 4 or the 2 before that. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there. I think certainly there's that damper that could exist if you lose, but at the end of the day, every single team will have every single goal squarely on their radar after week 1.
Eric McLean of the ACC Network with us on the Higginbotham Hotline. I'm super intrigued with Tennessee and Syracuse because I'm kind of going backwards on Tennessee and I'm kind of gaining some momentum on Syracuse. One, because of just hearing Fran Brown at different points in the offseason. Two, they've made some really cool additions. Where are you on this matchup? What maybe should Syracuse fans or Tennessee, let's go Tennessee fans, be concerned about with what this Syracuse team's going to bring?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things that, a couple of months ago where, maybe the schedule was coming out and we're looking at who Syracuse is going to be keeping, who they're losing. You're kind of sitting there and like, man, is Syracuse going to be bowling next year? I mean, they just won 10 games. Are they going to be able to even make a bowl game because of the gauntlet and who they play? And then you look at that, obviously, the Tennessee game very early and something where you have to be ready in a hurry. But as you said, the additions that they've made, you look at guys that they've brought in and you're excited and you're thinking, hey, what can they do in a hurry? How can they come together? Fran Brown, as you mentioned, is an amazing coach, amazing recruiter, empowers his young men and the ways that he's handling NIL and these different things with fines and all these different things. It's fun, and he's a guy that I would love to play for because he's as real as it gets and very kind of blunt and to the point. And I think that makes guys play harder for you. I think that makes guys inspired. And a Tennessee team here that obviously I think that the quarterback situation is going to be fascinating, but then an inspired Syracuse team. So you got to look out for the passing. They're going to throw it all over the yard. They're going to sling that ball, and with the transfer quarterback from Notre Dame that we saw in the playoff in the biggest game of his life deliver and hit some big strikes, he's going to be ready to go, and it's going to be his show. And we saw what Fran Brown was able to do with Kyle McCord. I know that's a little bit different story there, a 5-star guy in Kyle that just needed a little belief, but you see how that translates. And when your head coach has your back no matter what, that's very empowering for a quarterback. So I think they're going to be just fine right there. The size that they've added on the offensive line, I mean, these guys are huge. You look at, if you're not 6'6", Syracuse isn't recruiting you, to play offensive line. And coach gives Kirby Smart all the credit in the world of that, of him just constantly saying, big people hurt little people. And he's fully taken that approach and really transformed this team in a hurry.
Finally, Eric, if it's not Clemson and Miami, who is it this year in the ACC?
I think it's hard not to give SMU a ton of credit. I mean, they have so many pieces coming back, but most importantly, you've got your head coach, your offensive coordinator, and your quarterback. And I think Kevin Jennings, the growth that we should expect from him, the jump that we should expect from him in year 1 to year 2 as a starter, I'm not necessarily saying it'll be the Cade Klubnik type jump of numbers and sustainability that we saw from Cade this year, but it certainly could be. Because we all know that growth is quite significant. I mean, he went into the off season last year. He went into summer camp, fall camp, as the backup, as the number 2, maybe fighting for a spot. Well, he has been the guy, since that TCU game, since they made kind of the adjustment, and they have been sprinting and looked really, really good. And I get the playoff. There's a couple of things here and there that, man, if KJ just did a little differently, maybe that game's different. I don't know how different it would be. But I think there's a big learning opportunity from that. And, just talking with him about what things are you working about and my footwork, my eyes, getting to the ball out quickly, making the right decision, not necessarily the big decision or pushing it downfield when I can just take a check down and let that guy do his thing. He is electric as all get out and has a great feel for the game. I am really excited to see the growth and what can SMU do kind of as an encore after going undefeated in ACC regular season and playing against Clemson in the championship.
Quickly, is Virginia Tech dangerous this year? What do you like? What do you not like? What's the South Carolina fans be concerned about week 1?
Yeah, Virginia Tech's one of those teams that just seems recently, man, where there's expectation that they can't live up to it. And when there's not, maybe, they will a little bit more. I love Kyron Drones, and I think he's a great quarterback. And, it's just all about health and can he stay there? I think a year ago there was a lot of expectation and hype for Virginia Tech, and clearly they did not meet that at all. It is a complete understatement to say how important that game is, kind of the Beamer Bowl, if you will, and the great things that Shane Beamer is doing there. And I know that Virginia Tech would feel really good if they can get a victory over those guys, but that's a really talented team in South Carolina. They've got to have their P's and Q's ready and everything Lenora Sellers is going to bring to that game. So I think there's some question marks. There's some guys that, moved on or went to the NFL, and you saw the talent in the draft of what they lost, that they're going to have to be ready in a hurry.
Eric, great stuff, man. Thanks for hopping on with us. Always appreciate the conversation. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yes, sir. No doubt. Appreciate you guys always.
Absolutely. That's Eric Mac Lain of the ACC Network joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, talking some of these ACC, SEC matchups coming up week one this college football season. We'll give opinions on those each. We'll follow up when we come back. First, tell you about Game Day Men's Health. If you're feeling on edge, if you're lacking sleep, if you lack energy, Game Day Men's Health wants to help you. Could be the effects of low testosterone. This is what you do. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Sign up for the free consultation. Go in. You get a free PSA test, free testosterone test. They'll let you know where your baseline health is. Maybe it's just weight loss. They have multiple programs that can help you with that. Also, the peptides are in stock now. They can mix those to help you with different ailments, be it arthritis, maybe anti-aging, stomach issues, sleep issues. They want to help you with whatever is bothering you at Game Day Men's Health. Holistic approach to health and wellness, locker room environment, great people, no stress, and minimal upfront costs from the programs that they offer. That's different than everywhere else in town. July 4th sale coming up now at Game Day Men's Health. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com for more information. Save 10% on anything they offer by mentioning Mac and Cube in the morning at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. We'll continue the conversation around these early matchups next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 8:55 right here on Jox 94.5. Jason Caldwell talks Auburn recruiting coming up next. Of those matchups, Greg, LSU Clemson, the easy one to say, probably most intriguing. Which is the sleeper matchup of these ACC SEC matchups week one?
I think it's definitely Syracuse, Tennessee.
I'm with you.
I'm not sure it's close. And it's partly because I think Tennessee's got a lot to prove. And I think Syracuse has a lot of unknowns because of how much turnover their roster's experienced. Now, I think they'll have talent. I don't know how competitive they'll be this year. The ball kind of bounced their way a couple times last year and ended up being pretty dang good. But I think that one's fascinating and one with pretty significant impact on the perception of both leagues.
No, I'm with you. And I think, too, like you and I both thought Angeli had a good chance to win the Notre Dame job. He doesn't. Most likely going to be put in a good situation there at Syracuse. We saw what happened offensively last year. And a group that's going to get after you in a lot of different ways. So I'd be on high alert if I were Tennessee in that game week one. And I don't think a lot of Tennessee fans really are. I think that's one that a lot of people look at and say, oh, they'll be fine. And I don't view that game that way at all right now for the Vols. We'll continue those conversations, but we need updates on Auburn recruiting. Is it as bad as some people are saying? Jason Caldwell will join us next to fill us in on why Auburn's losing commits. Next, Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. Hour number 3, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys being with us. We've already heard from Paul Finebaum, Pete Nikkos, Eric Mac Lain. Jason Caldwell will be with us in just a moment. But first, I'll tell you about your CBD store. If you need answers for better sleep, for arthritis, for anxiety, maybe arthritis, anxiety for a pet in your household, anti-aging, gut health, skincare, your CBD store can help. They just want to make your daily routine better. Taking the edge off in the evenings, more energy during the day, better focus throughout the course of the day. They have products that can help you with each and every one of those ailments. 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleveland, Trustful just off 459. Your CBD store, first company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. They've got the stamp seal on those products, so you know they're going to meet and achieve a certain set of standards. Stop by today. Tell them you heard about them right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Your CBD store where good health hits home. Jason Caldwell of Inside the Auburn Tigers joining us on the Higginbotham hotline to talk Auburn recruiting. And Jason, a couple of flips in the last 2 days that have not gone the way of Hugh Freeze and his staff. Should Auburn fans be concerned about where this next recruiting class is headed?
Maybe a little bit, but there's so much that is still just unknown because we're now in essentially an NFL model, except that free agency happens every year. And so I think Auburn has chosen to allocate its money potentially when you're thinking ahead to 2026 in keeping this young talent on the roster and trying to keep Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons and, Perry Thompson and, DeMarcus Riddick and all these young guys. I think they've said, look, we're going to reward our guys that are currently on our roster a little bit more at the moment. And obviously I think other schools are promising and maybe doing some things a little differently than that. And right now, I don't know that there's any right way or wrong way to do it until the dust settles and you see what happens. But I do think, obviously when you start going, hey, there's a little bit of concern there. Yes, but it's also a different world. It's not 1998 when you think about recruiting anymore. And so, a little concerned, but I honestly don't think it's anything to freak out about at the moment, when Auburn's concerned.
Well, also, you can take into account, hey, maybe they're holding back some money to maybe make a run at some transfer portal players down the road. It's just so many different ways to slice it. But I am curious, what do you think the recency, the challenges that they've experienced in the last 2 or 3 days, what do you think that leads to, where guys are actively leaving their commitments?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it leads to anything else other than where you start to go, okay, well, here's what it does lead to. Maybe the funds that you had allocated for those guys now go in a different direction. And so you start to go, okay, now what's next on the board? What are you looking for? What positions are you trying to target? Here's what I do believe. I do believe for a fact, I don't know if it's going to work that way for other schools. I do believe we're going to see smaller recruiting classes because of what you mentioned. If I'm a general manager and I have a choice to give money, and it's going to be for 1 year because there's no guarantee that the freshman you sign right now is going to be there as a sophomore. If I have money to give, am I give my money to a freshman or am I going to give my money to a guy who's proven it already at this level? I'm probably going to give my money to a guy who's already proven it at this level. So I think this is going to really impact the balance and depth of signing classes for major college schools. And because of that, I think we're going to see the UABs, the Jacksonville States, the Troys of the world probably sign better classes than they've ever signed, because I think there's going to be more of those players that aren't going to find spots.
That's an interesting thought. Jason Caldwell of Inside the Auburn Tigers joining us on the Higginbotham hotline. Listener Brandon Barranco tweeted in earlier, and I have no factual information on any of this, Jason, and I'm not saying that you do. I just want your thoughts on his apparent factual information. He says, Auburn's a top 5 SEC program historically, so why are they number 9 in NIL funding right now? Leadership, booster fatigue, too much drama. Either way, history doesn't win recruits anymore. Money does. I don't know if I believe that that's accurate and where he's headed with that. What would your response be to that?
Yeah, I think Auburn had plenty of money and has spent money in NIL to be competitive, and I think that's shown up. One part of this we talked about is it's pretty obvious. The first 2 years when you're in the coaching staff and when you took over what they took over, you're going to get some leeway as far as wins and losses. I think that normally, and for years and years, I said, look, wins and losses don't matter a ton in recruiting. I do think now in year 3, you got to go out and win football games. I think that's part of this as well. When you're moving forward. But as far as NIL money, yeah, I don't. Here's the thing: they're going to tell you how much money they're going to spend, and some people are going to tell you they're spending a bunch when they're not. I don't know who has the wherewithal to go, hey, this is exactly what their NIL budget is, because I don't think people want a lot of that stuff out there. Auburn has money and has spent money, and I don't think they're hurting to go out and spend money. I think, like what Greg said too, I do think part of this is, look, we don't know what December is going to look like yet, because we don't know what this salary cap is going to work, how it's going to impact the recruits. Are kids being promised things now that schools won't be able to deliver in December? Probably. There may be, this recruiting board may look a lot different in November than it does right now. There is so much unknown, and it changes every day right now. And so I think Auburn is playing it on the conservative side at the moment.
Well, they obviously spent a ton of money on this roster. I know that it's among the highest level rosters as far as money spent in the country. It's top 6, I've been told, at the very worst. So how much of it might have to do with the fact that they front loaded a little bit on this year, but also at the same time, it's a little bit of a prove it year for Hugh Freeze, because, hey, we're not going to guarantee more money if we don't get results on a year in which we've put tremendous resources into.
Well, I think, what I mentioned earlier, part of it too is when you start running down the list of what you would consider Auburn's best players and how many of those guys are out of eligibility after this season. Not many of them. Most of the guys that you would consider Auburn's best players going into this year at premium positions are young guys, are underclassmen. And that goes back to my point of who are you going to take care of? Right now, if you're Auburn, you have to allocate funds to continue to keep Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons and all those guys on your roster next year. I think that's part of this. You're going, look, if you have $15 million theoretically of a $20 million budget to spend on your football roster, it's hard to imagine right now that you're going to pay $1 million of that to a high school recruit. It's hard to think that's going to happen. Sure, some people are probably doing it or promising it. It's hard for me to think that 8%, 7% or whatever your entire budget is going to go to a high school player. I think right now Auburn has chosen to try to continue to take care of the guys that are currently on the roster, and obviously you're going to continue to try to recruit top level players, and they're doing that as well. But somewhere along the line, a salary cap will come into play, and how you navigate that is going to be a key for schools moving forward.
Visiting with Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers. He covers the Auburn Tigers in recruiting and even more so all other sports. Jason, when you think about the conversations that are happening right now, as the end of that tweet read that I stated to you, it's financial. How much of it is financial for a lot of these programs? And some of the conversations that Auburn's been having and maybe not winning on, is it strictly about money? And not that they don't have it, but just that they're not willing to put up that much for certain kids, so they're going to go get more somewhere else.
Yeah, I think we'd be naive to think that it's not a factor. I think it's a factor probably more than it's never been. And I think the change now is that last summer, it's all about what you're willing to spend. Now, are you going, hey, here's what we're doing? And I think Auburn has chosen to be more of an NFL model, going, look, okay, what do NFL teams spend money on? What positions are you willing to? Now, if you have Saquon Barkley, you'll go spend money on a running back, but you're probably not spending as much money on a running back in the NFL as you are at wide receiver now. Obviously, quarterback's always a premium position. Offensive tackle is going to be a premium position. Legit, space moving defensive tackle, pass rusher, corner. I think Auburn has tried to go, hey, look, what's the NFL model look like moving forward? Maybe that's where we focus more of our funds, money, those kind of things. Yeah, and I think part of it is too is I think part of it is the unknown. Going, look, you don't know what this is going to look like. You can go promise somebody a bunch of money that you might not have in December to try to win in June. I think Auburn's betting on the long game. Going, look, you're trying to win and build the best roster you can in December, and how do you accomplish that goal?
Finally, we talk a lot about expectations. We talk a lot about possible breakthrough this year, and I know we've talked about this multiple times on the show, but I'm pretty dang optimistic about Auburn this year. I just have a feeling they're going to take a pretty significant step forward. I think the things that plagued them last year with pivotal mistakes, key turnovers, and inopportune moments, I think those things are hard to do 2 years in a row. Could it happen? Sure, but I think it's unlikely. So what do you think the ceiling is for Auburn this year?
I mean, I think this is a team that when you start looking at ceiling and potential, we even saw some of it last year. You're right, Greg. I thought that they took steps forward on both offense and defense last year. Now, offensively, you had mistakes, those things, but creating explosive plays, doing the things normally that you want to do to be a really good offense, they did a lot of things. You're right. They had turnover issues defensively. I thought they took a step forward. I thought not having a healthy Alex McPherson probably cost them a couple of games. And so you think about, can you get that back in order? You got what I think is an elite wide receiver group to build around. I think probably on paper right now, the best offensive line group that Auburn's had since 2017. And then some young guys on defense. I think the potential is there for this team to go out and compete with everybody. And even last year, you lose to Georgia and Alabama on the road. But I thought they had opportunities in both those games to be there in the fourth quarter. And that's the first time in a long time that Auburn teams have had those opportunities in Athens and Tuscaloosa. And so can you take the next step and win some of those games? Maybe, but I think you're closer now than you've been in quite a while.
Is there a legit buzz about somebody that we're not talking about through this offseason that needs to maybe a little bit more conversation that you think could help this team early?
Man, it's really interesting because you have added some pieces. The guy that I keep coming back to, that I keep hearing stuff about, is obviously you think about Xavier Chaplin, you think about the Virginia Tech offensive tackle. But I continue to hear people talk about Mason Murphy, the USC, offensive line transfer, a guy that can play tackle, can play guard, big physical guy. And I continue to hear talk about that. And obviously you think about wide receivers, and Eric Singleton's getting some buzz, and you got Malcolm Simmons, those guys. I think Sam Turner, the true freshman from Atlanta, is probably another one of those guys. And then defensively, I talked to a couple of folks, and he gets a lot of attention, but hearing the talk about Keldrick Falk and how this year he's even more different than he's been the last 2 years. That's a really good sign for Auburn, because if he can take another step forward, then that creates some things up front on defense that can really help you on that side of the ball.
Jason, we appreciate the time, man. Thanks for the updates. Thanks for the info. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Jason Caldwell, inside the Auburn Tigers, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services. So it does not sound necessarily like the sky is completely falling, Greg.
You don't say.
Wow.
We're only 6 months till signing day. I'm not sure I'm ready at this point to press the panic button on anything as it relates to recruiting right about now. But what do I know?
What do we know?
I still think it'd be nice to not be losing guys. But I also think that there's an air of unknown right now surrounding Auburn football. Like, if they go out and win this year, how much does that change the impression and maybe the possibility of a guy being willing to take less to play on a good team? I mean, that's possible as well. I don't know how likely it is. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think there is a possibility that a successful season would pay significant dividends in kind of where things go from here.
Let's be real. There's always a better chance you're going to be able to get more bargains when guys think you're going to win and they can come play for a team that's going to win. And until Auburn shows that, proves that, you might not have the ability to do that. So we'll see. Move back away from recruiting and get back into our worst case scenarios for SEC starts. You'll have to wait for that, but one thing you never have to wait for is your dental care.
That's because Family Care Dental has you taken care of. They're the urgent care officer. You can be seen the same day. They have several locations to make it easy on you in Hoover, Fultondale, Homewood, Alabaster, and Trustful. You can get in the same day. Routine cleaning now includes free teeth whitening. They accept most insurance plans, and they accept patients of all ages. They can also see you on Fridays and Saturdays. So call them today at Family Dental. It's 874-9605. That's 874-9605.
All right, when we come back, more on potential devastating starts in the SEC next. Mac and Cube in the morning. A couple other folks tweeting into the show. Jeremy Raines tweets in at Mac and Cube. I agree with that Pete Nikkos about Auburn. Jason Caldwell pretty much said same thing on the latest AU video. Auburn is likely holding the money closer to the vest until they see what their needs are come December. A lot of teams may lose players over promising. Is that waiting too long, Greg?
I think that sounds like waiting too long, or just declaring, hey, here's what we're going to get you. And then come December, oh, yeah, by the way, gosh, we can't get you what we told you we were going to get you.
Yeah. AEC's dad tweets in, to Pete's point about classes looking different, you've got to think about it like NFL rosters and free agency. Some top and elite guys, 4 stars in the middle, then developmental guys to round out the roster. You'll see smaller classes, 18 to 20 each year. I thought Jason made a very interesting point that your Troys, your UABs, your Alabama States, they may sign better classes than they've ever signed before. And a lot of that just having to do with the numbers available to them.
Yeah.
And it could be wild to see all of a sudden UAB has twice as many, 3 times as many 3 or 4 star guys that they've ever signed in one single class because they're available now.
Yep.
And a lot of these colleges, Greg, they want to go out and get a tight end from Troy that's at least proven, that's played, that knows the physicality, even though he might not be overly dynamic or command $500,000 a year. We need a guy that knows how to play now.
Correct. I think that there's a real possibility that there are teams that will benefit, whether it's roster sizes, roster limits, keeping it at 105 as opposed to 128. The G5, the FCS, D2, D3, it all runs downhill to the point where, all right, well, I can't afford to pay these guys what they want, and frankly, we can only go after the top guys. We're going to have to pass on couple of the top guys, which lowers their ceiling of what they can potentially earn, which lowers the ceiling of what the 3 stars that can earn, which means the 3 stars might be open to early playing time by going to a place like UAB, Tulane, Georgia Southern, what have you. So I think it's all very, very healthy for the future of college football.
Yeah, it's going to be intriguing to watch how it works out. Let's get back to some of these potential worst-case scenario starts that could happen for SEC teams. Let's go to Ole Miss, and because they're a team that has not had a heavy start traditionally. This year's may be a little bit more complicated than it's been prior. We'll go to after the bye week. So going into the Washington State game would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Georgia State at home, Kentucky on the road, Arkansas at home, Tulane at home, LSU at home, then a week off. So 5 games before Washington State. What is the doomsday scenario for Ole Miss there? Worst case scenario.
I know you love emphasizing that.
Because your worst case scenario is usually 1 loss for a team.
Because I like to see the good in everybody at this time of year.
Congrats. Let's get real now.
Just because you want to ruin everybody's summer.
Pardon me for the reality that I'm bringing.
I mean, they lost to Kentucky last year.
We ain't all winning them all.
They lost to Kentucky last year. Can they lose to Kentucky again on the road in week 2?
Hell if I know. I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, they probably could. I mean, I think that's possible. I think that's definitely possible. Can they lose to LSU? Sure. Can they lose to Tulane? Sure.
Do you feel like you know less about Kentucky than any other SEC team right
100%. It's a completely revamped roster. There's no way of knowing anything. So if someone tells you they know something, it's purely based on a hunch. Like I think you can read as much about these guys individually and feel okay about these guys individually, but collectively, how the heck do we know if they're going to be any good?
No idea.
Like, for example, I think Kendrick Law is a really good player. I think he's a good, solid player. I don't think he's like a top-level wide receiver. I think he's a really good football player. Like, get him the ball in space, let him run with it.
If they go back to what they were when they were winning 8, 9, 10, I think he's actually a great fit for them too.
Yeah, and he's physical and plays it the right way. Like, there's a lot of things to like about that marriage. But
he's not mossing guys 20 yards down the field on a regular basis. That's
he's not a guy I want as my primary receiver. I don't even know if he's a guy I want as my primary slot. But they've taken guys like him in the past and done direct snap stuff. They've taken guys in the past and have done, end around handoff stuff. Like, that's a pretty good place to live. I like Kendrick Law as a football player. At Alabama, I think he was a little bit of a fish out of water because I think Jeremy Bernard already really does a lot of the things that he does.
Right.
So it's kind of an unnecessary piece because now you got Jalen Mbakwe can do a lot of those things. It's like, it's just, I think, tricky to find a place for him. But at Kentucky, I like the fit. But I also couldn't tell you anything about their offensive line. I know they lost some really good pieces on the defensive line, and that's concerning. And not just Deion Walker. I'm talking more like the guys that are...
You lost some guys that have been playing
edge guys,
solid reps for a long time up front. And I think the numbers will still be okay up front. They're not going to be what they were. And you and I both have a lot of confidence in Brad White. But Khalil Saunders has played a lot of football for him. Josiah Hayes has played some football. You go get David Gusta from Washington State, who I think is a solid player. There's not a lot of wow factor with those guys up front, but let's be real. They've won without wow factor there before. And then having Davin Rayner, Alex Safari back at linebacker, they both played a lot. That'll help. You have your whole secondary back for the most part, at least the guys who played the back end of the season. So that should give you some I don't think the defense is going to be porous by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to know they're going to score points. Because if that system's going to work, you have to run the football. And you know that system like I do. We've watched it with Harsin. We've watched a lot of it with Norvell. We've watched it with Silverfield at Memphis. Like, it's the same stuff. The stretch plays got to go if that system's going to work. It has to. And this offensive line hadn't played a lot of snaps together. I mean, Joshua Braun's been, 3 SEC schools now? We've been waiting for Jagger Burton for 3 years. So, I mean, and I'm not saying he can't play. It just hasn't happened yet. I haven't seen Shaziah Pete play a lot in the SEC. I don't know how it's going to work. And they've also worked, with tight ends that had been good before. And this group is some guys that have sort of let them down a little bit.
Yeah.
And they've been really good at running back. Now, I think Dante Dowdle can help a little bit, but they need Jameer Wilcox to be big time if they're going to win some games. Like, he's got to be the flash, the guy who we've seen flash a little bit. He's got to be that on a very regular basis. I heard great things about Jamori Macklin last year from that Kentucky staff transferring in, but he didn't get it done.
No.
That seems to be the reoccurring theme is if the guys that have some ability can get it done consistently, they might be okay. We just haven't seen a lot of them do it.
I still think it's a group that has a chance to be physical. I had Kentucky 3 or 4 times last year, and I had them 3 or 4 of their best performances. Had them against Ole Miss, had them against Georgia. I also saw the other side of the equation when I had them against South Carolina. Like, I've seen this team at their best point. I've seen them at their worst point. Last year, you get them on the wrong day, there was still a problem. Like, that I think is what people need to realize, is that while Kentucky might not be a team that right now, in the current version of the SEC, that I'm ever going to have a lot of confidence saying they're an 8-9 win team, I just don't think they are ever going to be able to be, let's just be real. When they were winning their 8, 9, 10 games, it's because they were in the SEC East. They lost to the teams they were supposed to lose to. Florida was down, and they beat the teams they were supposed to beat. Missouri was down. Tennessee was down. Georgia was up. So it was kind of more circumstantial. Doesn't mean they can't do that again. Possibly. I just think it's a whole lot harder to get there this time of year.
No, I'm with you.
Or this year and in the future. So
worst case for Ole Miss when we go back to it.
I think 3 losses.
Damian? Georgia State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tulane, LSU, leading into Washington State. Worst case scenario, 3-2 for you? Could they drop Kentucky? Absolutely. Can Taylon Green run wild on a revamped defense? Yes. Tulane's going to punch you in the face. It'll be a tough game. I don't expect them to lose it, but if you don't bring your A game, and go look how that game's gone when they've played in the last few years. And then LSU, obviously, we know they can drop that one.
Right, yeah. I'd say 2 losses.
No question.
I think 3 is possible. Doomsday is 3.
I think 3 can happen.
It can absolutely happen.
I don't think it's likely. I think it can happen, though.
All right, David.
They have a lot of things to sort out, man. I mean, I think Ole Miss can be good.
That D-line's
I like
not
their
gonna be
quarterback.
close, though.
I like their quarterback a lot. I think offensively, their skill is fantastic. I really do. I like what they have on offense. I don't like what they have on defense relative to what they had last year.
It's fair. Dave in Hoover wants to chime in. Welcome in, Dave.
Hey guys, yeah, the guy called in just before the break about Auburn breaking that stuff down, man. That would make me nervous if I was an Auburn fan or alumni or whatever. I mean, NFL platform he's talking about, that's 3-4 year contracts on these players. You got time to worry about what's coming up towards the end. But in the college situation, these recruits still want to go to a college like in Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, LSU, Florida, Bama, because they know they've got there's a roadmap to the NFL. I bet Kirby probably says, you see this number 72, that's the number of draft picks I've had in the last 5 years. You see the number 22, that's first-round picks. These kids may take a little bit less money to go to school where they know they're going to get developed, but they're going to be seen on a regular basis. I just think if that's Auburn's philosophy, I think they're going to continue chasing their tail. I'm confused about what he was saying.
I think that, Dave, there's so many ways to look at it right now, and there's not a way to do it because, as Jason stated, that NFL model, which a lot of people are pointing to, if you recall, he also added on the back end of that, but there's free agency all the time. So
yeah, I think they're overthinking it. I think that's you just got to let it play out, and you can only control what you can control, and just roll with it. I think in college, if you think, well, we're going to worry about next year, or we're going to concentrate on whatever coming up next year, I'm like, what? So what you're saying is I just don't know. I'm confused about it. I'd be scared to death. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Appreciate the feedback. 800-239-9569. You want to get in? 800-239-WJOX. So, I mean, you have to project some of it. You can't just go spend just to get guys. And if they're not the guys that you want, if they're not the guys you think are the best fit, then you do save some. You do put some to the side. You do pre-plan. You got to budget a little bit here because then there is going to be booster fatigue. There are going to be guys that cut you off. And if some of these guys were on the fence of, hey, we like you, but we're not going to overpay for you, yet other school is going to overpay for you, go to other school. Because the portal's going to open up again. And guess what other kids at other places are going to do? When a linebacker's committed somewhere and they go sign it, they go get another linebacker committed, his recruitment's opening back up. And he's going to take money. So it changes every day. But we're not recruiting experts. That's why we have people on the show.
Far from a recruiting expert.
We don't know how it goes. We don't know what the real story is on a lot of these guys. We lean on other people for that. But there's also not a known way to manage this because, let's be honest, it's going to change again. I mean, the house settlement's not even in place because it's being disputed. So nobody has any idea exactly where this thing's going.
But at the same time, what I think is still a better play right now is let's not overpromise and underdeliver. Like, I still think there's going to be chaos in the recruiting world. And I'm still of the belief that the house settlement will calm things down and it will help with a little clarity when it comes to the P&L for a lot of these places. I mean, there's a lot of money that is exchanging hands. There's a lot of people telling people things that they are going to be getting when they arrive on campus, and they won't get that much. That will happen. So if you are there ready to capitalize with a war chest of dry powder in December, then you might be in really good shape. Because that's going to be what happens. All these schools said, hey, yeah, we got you for this, we got you for that. Yep, you got this, you got that. Awesome. And then when push comes to shove and they got to get under the $20.5 million cap, they can't do it, then you be ready to pounce. So that's what I would do. I think that's the right play. I think it's a smart play. I think it's a responsible play. I don't know if I'd say it's smart. I just think it's responsible. And we'll see what that happens. Because the last thing I want to do is get into hot water, and then I don't have time to backfill spots on December 7th with sign day coming up on December 15th. Okay, a week to recruit is a problem. 5 months to recruit, not so much of a problem.
No, especially in today's climate.
I'd slow play it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you one place you don't have to worry about slow playing it is at Royal Automotive, because they have all the vehicles you could want right there at one location for over 50 years. Royal Automotive, they've been helping our friends and neighbors experience how car buying should be. Right now, get financing goes to 0% with approved credit on select models through June 30th. Certain restrictions apply. 4 dealerships, 1 location, unmatched selection and savings. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. From sales to service, the team at Royal can help you find a new ride and keep you rolling when it's time to start searching for your next vehicle. All 4 stores in one location means you can get behind the wheel for a test drive without driving all over town. And when they say for every ride there's Royal, they mean it. If you're shopping for that very first ride or your dream ride, go see my friends at Royal, corner of I-65, Highway 31 in Vestavia, online, royalautomotive.net. We will continue this conversation. Get your feedback, 800-239-9569. Next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Glad you're with us. 800-239-9569. Can text in 205-834-9450. Going through doomsday scenarios for SEC starts. LSU, another one could be dangerous, Greg. We know the Clemson game. We previewed that with Eric Mac Lain earlier. If you missed that, go to joxfm.com, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get yours. Also, you can just get the app, podcast there, click live to watch us live on YouTube every morning. Tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jox skill, another way to listen. Clemson, La Tech at home, Florida at home, Southeast Louisiana at home, Ole Miss and Oxford. Doomsday scenario for LSU. Going into the bye week before they play South Carolina, those first 5 games would be?
2 and 3.
2 and 3, yeah. It can't be worse than that. And that would be rough.
I don't think it's going to be 2 and 3. I think 3 and 2 feels a little more likely. You really think they're going to lose?
Okay, let's start over. What part of this conversation do you not understand
I
that we're
get
having
it
right now?
Doomsday scenario.
We're not saying what we think is definitively going to happen, but if the worst case scenario were to hit, okay?
2 and 3
I understand, like y'all's worst case scenario was like half of a loss in the whole season when you played at Alabama. I get that. This is a new dawn. This is a new dawn of a new day, new era. Like Thomas Castellanos said, Nick Saban ain't saving anybody anymore. Okay?
I got it.
Worst case scenario is what we're talking about. It's not going to be more than 3 losses, but could they lose to Clemson? Yes. Florida? Yes. Ole Miss? That's the one I feel least confident about, actually, and it's on the road. So but what is that? The Poinsettia Magnolia Flower Game? Whatever that is? Trophy they play for?
The Magnolia Ball?
Magnolia Ball.
Big rivalry.
Not to be confused with the Camellia Ball?
It's not.
When they come to town, we get extra mad.
Our tailgates are extra fun.
There's a trophy for that game.
We wear extra powder.
What's best case scenario for LSU there?
5-0.
5-0? Okay. What's best case scenario for Ole Miss? Going back to them really quick. Georgia State, Kentucky, Arkansas, Tulane, LSU. Is it undefeated?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, personally, best case scenario for Ole Miss is going to be 4-1. But that's just
which one they lose.
So LSU.
LSU.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not able to get to that quarterback, you're going to have big problems. If you can force them to hand the ball off, that could be very advantageous.
So you're saying you like Nussmeier as long as there's no pressure. Wow.
I love a quarterback who does not like to move when he's not pressured. Yes. That equation I can compute in my brain.
Makes sense. Checks out.
All right, let's go to Auburn. One that we have not hit yet.
Auburn.
Doomsday scenario for Auburn.
Y'all are so dead.
Starting it out. We'll go before the bye week, which would lead into Georgia on October the 11th. So the first 5 games of the season. Baylor and Waco, Friday night. Ball State, South Alabama. Oklahoma in Norman. Texas A&M in College Station. Oh, man.
Doomsday scenario, 0-5.
Oh, God.
No, I'm just kidding. 2 and 3.
Here we go.
2 and 3. Doomsday scenario. 3 of the first 5 on the road. I mean, you could lose on the road. Like that's
100%.
That's where it comes down to. Like I'm heavy on road home in preseason. I really am. It's
no possible slip up to South Al.
No.
Doesn't seem likely.
If Gio Lopez is back, maybe we might be having a different conversation about that one. I'm with you. I think Baylor. We've spent a lot of time talking about it. They can absolutely lose that game. That's a coin flip game in my brain.
That's a hard game because I just hate that game for Auburn because Baylor's good, first and foremost. Jake Spavital is going to have some unique wrinkle up his sleeve going into year number 2 as the OC. He's got a great quarterback and running back duo. They got good weapons. And I think the most concerning part about it is the fact that Baylor has nothing to lose and Auburn has everything to lose. So if you're sitting there in the fourth quarter and it's all of a sudden a 3-point game and a team that made a million mistakes last year and a quarterback that's returning within 90 miles of his hometown, trying to show out for his squad and his hometown squad, and now all of a sudden he's got to go make a drive late to go win the game. Like, that's just a tough game.
It's like you said, there are a couple of things to hate for Auburn in that game. You mentioned Jake Spavital. Well, Mason Miller's his offensive line coach. What has Baylor been doing great the last couple of years? They've been running stretch play. Well, you look at Spavital and Mason Miller, who was with Mike Leach at Mississippi State, and you say, well, they're not going to – well, I think they are going to keep some of that. mainly because the guys have been doing it and they know how to do it. And we've talked about the difficulties in getting there. That continuity is there. So now, if you're DJ Durkin, you got to go defend the stretch play, and you got to now defend these new air raid principles that they're going to put into this offense. You don't know what they're going to look like. And then on the flip side of that, Hugh Freeze's offense is timing, rhythm, feel, understanding, decision-making. And that doesn't always look great week one, no matter who you are. So it does feel like the deck is stacked against Auburn in that game. Ball State, South Alabama, okay. Oklahoma, we've talked a lot about Oklahoma. That's just a dangerous game because John Mateer can get it. He's bringing his offensive coordinator with him. You got Deion Burks on the perimeter. If the offensive line's healthy, it could be a real problem. They have the best defensive line in the league. It's just a handful, man, and you got to go there. Is that Auburn's first trip there ever? I don't know the answer to that.
Yes, probably. I don't know. First in the SEC, though. I know that for sure.
I love the backpedaling up the stairs there. Yes, I don't know. Maybe, probably, definitively not. All of the above. Texas A&M, tough matchup for Auburn. I mean, if your offensive line doesn't come around, that front's still going to be pretty good.
Yes.
And,
this will be the first trip too.
And it will be the first one ever. Auburn's defensive line
Yes. See, I told you.
has some question marks. A&M's offensive line has a chance to be really good.
That's a hard game. It's A&M on the road.
Tough place
it's a
to
hard
play.
game. It shouldn't require a lot of explanation. Anyone going A&M is going to have a tough out this year. They're going to be good. They're going to be a solid football team.
Larry is on the road, wants to chime in. Welcome into the show, Larry.
Hey, guys, love the show. Listen every day.
Thank you.
Appreciate
to
it.
ask this, and this, guys, just y'all's insight. The one thing that's confusing to me, and I'm sure y'all read it every day, but with respect to one of you gentlemen said a $20.5 million cap, is that revenue that the university has to put up money to
Yes.
pay these athletes?
The athletic department has to. It's 22% rev share. So that's the number that was agreed upon in the House settlement. College football will take 75% of that $20.5 million.
Okay, now the collective, they're more or less like fundraising to raise more money for the different programs in the schools, or
Correct.
I'm just kind of confused, guys.
That's the next
in other
step
words,
is that while the 20.5 is paid by the school itself, the collective can subsidize in addition to that 20.5. But
Allegedly real NIL,
but that's with authentic NIL, actual transparency surrounding the NIL deals as opposed to pay for play, what it's been the last couple of years.
So in other words, if a multi in Tuscaloosa or in Auburn decides to want to do something for a couple of the ball players, whatever sport, basketball, football, all that's just okay, I got you.
So basically, you can't any longer. I can't say, hey, you can come to my car dealership. I'll give you $100,000 for one autograph appearance because that's not fair market value. And now there's a clearinghouse that was created. You can have a lawsuit all you want, but there's still a clearinghouse that's created that identifies what deals are actually fair market value.
I'm just telling you what's coming. Thomas Mars is going to try it. What do you mean fair market value? Against who? Who are you putting him up against? There is no other Lamar Jackson, Johnny Manziel in this quarterback class, so he does deserve that. That's what the argument's going to be. It's a whole different discussion for a whole nother day. Kind of like our weather, it can be different each and every day. One thing we do know for certain, that heat and humidity, it can be absolutely brutal. That's why you need the reliability of a Trane, voted America's most trusted HVAC brand. Right now, you can receive up to a 10-year warranty on parts and labor on select Trane home comfort systems. Find out more at Trane.com. It's hard to stop a Trane. When we come back, we'll continue this doomsday scenario for different SEC teams next. Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Tuesday, June 24th, right here on Jox 94.5. Find everything you need on the app. It'll link you to the YouTube where you can watch live every day. Go back and watch it later, the podcast, or just listen to the show live.
Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champs of GMC dealers, and you'll only get deals like this when you go and see the 5-time national champion in the last 5 years, the 8-time overall national champion. Go get yourself a GMC Sierra 1500 Denali Ultimate, $86,790 is the list price. They'll take $15,000 off that sticker, so you'll get it for just under $72,000 at $71,790. It's deals like that keep people coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customer. And regardless of what your budget is, they can find a solution for you. Go and check out their used car supercenter as well. Doesn't matter. Like I said, they will find a car for you. They'll finance it in-house. It's all great. You'll be really happy with the experience that you have. That's why they've won GMC's Dealer of the Year 5 times running. That's why they continue to deliver year over year better results than anyone else here in the entire Southeast. Take a short shot to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
Doomsday scenarios. Let's try to get 1-2 more in here. For Tennessee, first 5 games of the season before they take a week off, and they'll have Arkansas in Knoxville. What would the Doomsday scenario be heading into that bye week? Syracuse in Atlanta, ETSU at home, Georgia at home, UAB at home, Mississippi State in Starkville. Worst case scenario for you, Greg?
3-2.
Damian?
3-2.
I don't think it can be worse than that.
It could be 2-3, but do you think Mississippi State gets them at home?
I hope not.
I don't see that happening. No disrespect.
State's got a ways to go. Blake Shapen would have to be healthy, playing well, and there'd have to be a lot happening on that defense that was not taking place a season ago.
Correct.
For that to
I don't think it's likely. I'll go 3-2.
Missouri, first 5 games of the season before they take a week off and have Alabama at home. I want the worst case scenario here. Central Arkansas, Kansas, Cajuns, South Carolina, and UMass.
3-2. Could lose to Kansas, could lose to South Carolina.
You're not giving the Cajuns a chance?
No.
No UMass?
Nah, brah.
Absolutely.
Central Arkansas, though, they rip.
Is Pumachan back for UMass?
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know.
All right, we'll get to a couple more of those tomorrow. It's a fun practice, though, just going to see where everything is and how we think things are going to play out. 3-man front coming at you next. We're back 7 to 10 in the morning right here on